call this meeting to order. May I have first, Bill, a second, Mark, all in favor? We have to go into executive session?
No.
Okay, so we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But we do have an audience to visitors. So before we start our discussion, anyone would like to speak on any agenda or non-agenda items, you're welcome to speak at the podium. Okay, all right. So we have no takers, so we're going to move on to our discussion part of the meeting, starting with the budget guide.
Let's actually do the security gates first, and then the rest will just kind of be over.
Okay.
Okay, so I think I asked for this topic, and
I just want, are we picking up on Mike, Jeffrey?
Yes, we are. Just
Okay,
you
thank
need to be a little bit closer.
That's true. Yep, okay.
good.
Thank you.
I might sing.
Get the guitar, and here we go.
Exactly. So I had asked for this item. Hopefully, we don't need to spend too much time on it, but I know I've heard some comments about the appearance of the gates, and so what I'm curious about is there anything we can do in terms of either exploring with the architect, or I know the mayor of Laurel Hollow might have had thoughts based on the west side gates, but is there anything we could do to spruce them up to make them look a little more appealing from an aesthetics point of view? I know they're serving the safety purpose as the #1 goal. So I was just curious, and we don't have to solve it tonight, but I'd like to start that conversation.
The mayor reached out to me. I reached out to him again last week for him to provide. He thought he was going to gather some suggestions from people in the area, and he said he just didn't have enough time to do that yet, and he's working on that. So we can wait till Dan gets back to us on there. I guess the question is it the gate? And I think someone had mentioned the pole that they're, I guess, anchored to is a question, or both. If there's any discussion we want to have on that.
Yeah, I think it could be both.
Okay.
I'm not a town and country expert, so I don't know what they should look like, or maybe they're fine the way they are. But,
I don't like the idea of the
Yeah.
red, white, and blue. Did you see the pictures? I hear
yes, I did.
maybe bushes or something.
I think something that blends a little more.
I think the black definitely blends more than the red, white, and blue.
Yeah, black is what things are painted to just blend. I mean, even if you're going to put a fence, it would be black so you can see through it. I don't,
To get used to it.
yeah, I don't see a problem aesthetically. The red, white, and blue gates, I see a problem with aesthetically. I think it looks,
Maybe the poles, you can see like bushes.
There.
We did a demo, what red,
yeah.
white, and blue looks
Yeah.
like
No.
here.
no. And I just folded all of my American flag sweaters. We know I love to put on the red, white, and blue,
Yeah.
but that's not,
We do have, we made these little,
that's cute.
They're cute.
Yeah, those are- yeah.
so of course that west side, it can't be the Seahawk, it has to be the whale, otherwise Dr. Barnes would have me on it. So we could order
That's cute.
to make it look, but it definitely has to be reflective, that's part of DOT, just as a safety thing. I guess we can look, if we want something shrub here to hide that a little bit, we could.
Are the Seahawks reflected?
The Seahawks are reflective.
They look nice.
Is it dangerous to cover up poles with bushes? Like, or do you need to even put reflective things on the poles?
From the vendor, there are no reflectors on the pole here. These are pretty deep in, don't quote me exactly, this is the closest street, 4 to 5 feet. And the one over here, it may be hard, this is the, I'm sorry, this is the entrance. The exit is the one that's closest, this is the exit. There is a telephone pole here. If you hit that pole, you're hitting the telephone. There's no if, ands, or
Maybe you
buts
could
on
just do
that.
like 2 skip laurels in front. Like one on each side.
So, I think that's a plant, so.
It is. Never know what
That
happens.
may not,
Ants.
yeah, that might be fun.
That's just it.
Yeah, so I don't think the board has to solve it. I just think
Okay.
we should see if somebody has a recommendation who knows better about these
Okay.
things.
So like I said, Dan said he's gonna get back to me, the
Okay.
mayor, if he has any suggestions, but we can see here. He also did mention the one that's further north, I have a picture of that here. We have a gate, I didn't put it in here, on west side, at the far end of west side. Before, it was just a wire across. The gate was really there to prevent more people from using it. Dan's concern was that we were gonna use it more often. I texted him back, it's really more to prevent people from using it. They really could have judged with the trike, lifted up the wire and got underneath and they were on the gate, on the property. Now it is one of these gates. It's really preventing anyone from getting their quad or whatever onto the truck. It's more preventative. That's the way I saw it. But we could definitely look at, getting a couple of shrubs here on this side and the other side and making it look a little nicer.
Yeah, we should definitely come up with ideas, and now that we have even architects on the facilities committee. The upper turf has two nice pillars in front. They're not directly in front, they will probably put in after.
Yeah, up at the turf, there's a brick pillars on either side, right, not attached to the,
Right.
to the brick, to the pole.
They look
I
kind
don't
of,
remember.
that's a kind of nice entrance look. On the bottom picture, those little Seahawks,
No color.
those little Seahawks look really good, I think. But on the other side, it's an orange triangle, so we do Seahawks on both
Right, we do,
sides.
you know what, and I saw that the other day when it was open.
Yeah.
Like, we had it when it was closed, but when the gates open, you see the other side.
It looks-
Yeah, I think we need to do, I thought the same thing
We could double that up.
on the other side, that's not a problem for aesthetics. And west side, we will definitely go with
I don't know,
that.
I feel like when these went up at the high school, I did, like, originally was like, whoa, like, they kind of seemed like an eyesore, but now you're just used to them. Like, it's just,
The Seahawk?
no,
the
gates.
The gates
Oh.
themselves.
And even the traffic light, but, like, now it's there, it's just
I don't know,
not that big.
question about the interior gate at West Side, when, this one's not by the BOE, but it's by the school, is that a picture of it? Yes. So it doesn't look like it when it's closed now, but when parents are coming in to drop off in the morning and pick up, there's now a guard that needs to be stationed there to direct traffic, because it's, the way it's angled, I don't think it's a tight opening, because of its location. You could have two cars in there, but it's close with some of these large cars. So is there a way that we could move it, keep the gate, but just move it so it's not at that angle?
I would have to see, right, the opening is, and I don't have the measurements on there, you could get two of the largest trucks through. It's definitely a little bit tighter. If you look at this on it, along the curb, this pole is in line with the curb. Oops, sorry. We lose on the curb here 8 inches. So the difference to here and this goes in with the line, when I saw them, of the white line here. So that presumably is where most cars will end. So we lost a couple inches. There's definitely enough space for two of the largest SUVs on the road I looked up to pass, with about 3 feet of give. I think what the issue is when you're coming in straight, you're coming at it here as a curve. So people are turning, and they're being cautious.
We never had that before until the gates were up, so now we have a person directing.
I think part is they also see these here, like they're a little bit more, if
Yeah.
someone hit that
Could
curb,
be a mental.
they hit the curb. Who cares? But now if you hit that, you're gonna do damage to your car. And I've seen people with the curb before. We could look, I think that's a bigger reconfiguration of this setup. Like, we would either have to move this over here, this is a swing that comes out, which I don't think you're gonna pick much here, it's more on this end, which maybe we pick up a foot and a max, but it's still gonna be limited by how big this car is who parks in there. If you have a big SUV and it comes to the end, you're not picking anything up, but they're just gonna limit that. If we have a little bug or something, you're gonna pick up more space. We could look, but I do think it's a total reconfiguration and do on this one.
While we're on the gates, can I just bring up that the high school gates are closed all the time at night? And I come to pick up from tomorrow night, there'll be a cheer competition and the gates are closed. There's kids coming back from sports. It's dark. and now they're walking through the parking lot to parents' cars, and I thought they were supposed to be open so that we could pull into the circle and pick them up, and they're never open. And I actually saw somebody, I like hate to approach the guards too, because I feel like it's overstepping for me to go. It's not just a parent asking a question. So I just leave it, but I saw somebody else go up to them and say something, and they let one car in, and so another car went over and they said no, and they turned them away. So I thought the directive was, when parents are coming to pick up from sports, particularly at night, that they should be open for student safety.
I thought they were gonna be open until.
They're not.
Till 9 p.m.
Yeah, to 9, or when the building is the last activity. I will speak with
Yeah.
security on that.
Do the guards stay?
They're
till
there.
the last?
The guards close the gates,
But
yes,
do the guards stay until the last team comes home?
yes.
And they're there, so like when the cheer bus came in last Wednesday, they're,
Were the guards there?
yeah, they were there because the guard opened the gate and let somebody in, and then he told somebody else no, and I'm sitting in a spot watching all this unfold, feeling like it's really not my place to get up and tell the guards the gate should be open. That's overstepping, so I
And
just sat
cars
there.
are parking and they're
Yeah.
blocking where the buses are trying to get in.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And there's 7th graders on that team too. There's little kids now running through a parking lot at night, so it's not great.
Not a problem. That's very easy to solve. So I'm just gonna take a look to see about the west side bus loop, some aesthetics, maybe picture something on some either brick or possibility of plantings, and we'll see what, if we can, an adjustment on the other side of west side. And then,
There's a little, I like your little whale idea, because I do think these Seahawks make it look cuter and less, the big triangle, I think, is the ugliest part of the other gate. Not that we need to spend tons of time on how pretty the gates are.
Do we have extra of those Seahawks?
no, I don't remember if we bought 4 or 8.
And it might be useful to get a bunch, in the future, you may, find other uses.
You need 4 more there, and then on the back gate should be a couple, because they have
Mine.
orange triangles in the
The
back.
gates back over here, we're
Yeah.
thinking? Okay.
Put them on the white pillars
And,
and the
uh,
driveway.
If they reflect, I mean, they look better than the orange triangle.
Okay. So I guess when you're ready, Joe, the budget guidelines are next.
Yep.
Joe.
Oh,
We were gonna do,
we'll do budget lab, I'm sorry. We'll do
What,
all-
it was for discussion
Yeah.
though, is that something different or?
I think that really should be, that's Joe's presentation.
Okay, we'll just include that in the presentation.
We're gonna
All
have
right.
Ryan go first.
So then we'll move to our presentations now. And Brian, thank you, will be first up with his board goals update for strategic hiring and development plan.
okay, so the board had tasked me to come up with a plan to address our hiring and the life cycle of our employees from the time they walk in the door until they leave, hopefully as retirees. So what I've come up with is what I'm terming as a strategic hiring and development plan. I'm looking at this as a 3-year proposal. This is not something that I believe we can accomplish in just 1 year. It's going to take, several years to get the things we want out of this. The purpose of this plan is to attract highly qualified candidates in a competitive labor market, particularly in specialized instructional and support areas. When we post for jobs, we'll have some jobs where we will literally get 1,000 people apply, and then other jobs where we may get 8 people apply. So we need to make sure that we are attracting the highest qualified candidates in all of our positions, even the ones that are a little more difficult to attract. We want to support all our staff throughout their career life cycle. We want to foster growth, engagement, and successful career transitions. We also want to modernize our HR systems and strengthen our staff support. You know, what I believe our guiding beliefs are, our people are our greatest asset. Modern, efficient HR systems enhance every employee's experience, and strategic hiring and development ensure the highest quality instruction and support. What I would like to propose is creating what I'm calling a talent management committee that will guide the work in this hiring development plan. The makeup of the committee would be, you know, myself, my 2 assistants, building level representatives, both in instructional and non-instructional capacities, members of our bargaining units, and a Board of Ed representative or more, depending on who's available, as this is a board goal. The framework of this committee is for us to look at the different areas of an employee's life cycle. Recruiting, we want to make sure that we're attracting the highest quality candidates. Hiring, make sure that we are streamlining and standardizing the process as much as humanly possible. Obviously, there are some differences when you're hiring instructional versus civil service. Onboarding, you know, in my conversations, I had conversations with all the administrators when I started my position, and almost every one of them talked about we need to do a better job of onboarding when employees start, making sure they have everything that they need. They know their logins, what things they should have access to. So that's something that we need to work on. Training, you know, that would be in conjunction with Ms. Libertini for our instructional staff, and also making sure that our non-instructional staff is being trained. And also offboarding, looking at why people leave, you know, hopefully, you know, like I said, hiring someone so that they're leaving because they're going to retire. So the responsibilities of this committee would be to review our current practices and policies, recommend improvements in modernization. I would create subcommittees for each of the 5 life cycle elements, and then monitor progress on this goal. One of the things that I would like to bring to the district is modernizing our HR operations. You know, we're still a very paper-based hiring process. I would like to see us be able to expand our HR applications, have digital recruiting and applicant tracking. There's a lot of companies now that will link you into job boards, which, you know, for instructional staff may not be as important, but for our non-instructional staff, you know, expanding our reach would be something that we would be looking for. It would allow us to modernize our onboarding so that it would go from one person to the next, so that we would make sure that we weren't skipping steps and not offering the best onboarding experience to our new employees. It could even go into professional growth and performance reviews, and it would provide us with data analytics for our hiring and retention trends. So the goal here would be to find a unified HR tool to improve the efficiency and accuracy and employee experience. So my 3-year plan would be year 1 to work on foundation and planning, form the talent management committee, audit our hiring processes, and pilot on a human resources module. In year 2, roll out the chosen platform district-wide, launch our digital hiring, recruiting, and onboarding modules. In year 3, optimize and continuous improvement, use the analytics to understand why people come, why they stay, and then evaluate our mentoring, our exit data, and our professional growth. I believe that this will streamline our HR operations. It will improve candidate and employee experience. It will provide stronger retention and professional growth, and it will give us some data-driven staffing decisions, maintaining the district's excellence. So I am open to any questions that anyone may have. Yes, Mr.
Taylor. One of the problems I think we've seen is when you get when you get like fewer candidates, it takes a long time to come to the conclusion that maybe we don't have the right candidates. How would you propose with this committee to sort of identify that earlier? And maybe employ other means, like instead of just using OLAS, you know?
Well, and that's one of the things, you know, when I was in my position in West Islip, one of the companies that I would like to look at is a company called Schoolfront. Schoolfront has their own platform called Recruitfront, and they are linked into job boards like Monster, Indeed, things like that. So while, you know, unfortunately, I was just at like 2 HR meetings over the last week. Unfortunately, we are kind of beholden to OLAS just because in the state of New York, that is where teacher candidates go to look for jobs. So we wouldn't abandon OLAS, we would just expand outside of OLAS to other platforms. I think by streamlining the process and making it more digital, it would increase our ability to review resumes and identify qualified candidates and then get those candidates in for interviews and then identify earlier on if we're going down the wrong track and we need to kind of refocus our attention. So I think those are things that would allow us to kind of be a little quicker on our feet in making decisions and maybe changing direction earlier if need be.
Thank you.
Yes, thanks for a lot of thought went into this. Appreciate it. Couple questions. Where do I start? Oh, what was the actual wording of the goal that you addressed?
I don't have it in front of me.
I don't have it either. I don't remember what we were trying to accomplish. Remember? Anyway.
Yeah, it's on the code.
I didn't get it.
I thought it was here.
It's from the wall yesterday.
I believe the general term was to create a strategic and hiring retention plan to ensure that we're attracting the highest qualified candidates. I think it was something to that effect.
Absolutely, yeah. So, describe to me the talent management committee, what the composition you would look for on that. You mentioned a bargaining rep, like who would that constitute here being?
Well, I've done something similar in the past, and the committee would, like I said, I would be the chair. My 2 assistants who
Right.
are, you know, who are in the depths with me, involved in all the hiring process. We would have, you know, we would be looking for, you know, building level, district level administrators, teachers from all 4 buildings. We would be looking at, you know, members of the custodial buildings and ground staff, the clerical staff, you know, food service workers if they're available, you know, because to support a district, while teachers are the ones out front supporting our instruction, there's a lot of people behind the scenes that also support our students in different ways, and we want to make sure that we're hiring and attracting the best candidates in all of our areas.
But you'd have a committee made up of how many people?
I haven't come up with a number yet. I mean, it would probably be, you know, you figure if you have 5, we're looking at 5 subcommittees, you want to have at least 15 people on the committee so that each subcommittee would have, you know, three people participating on the subcommittees.
And what would you ask them to do?
To review our processes, like what does our recruiting process look like? Can that be, how can we improve that? What do we do well? What do we need to improve on? Looking at our hiring process, you know, looking at the forms that we use when we, you know, interview candidates, looking at, you know, what does the process look like? You know, right now, traditionally, it's screening resumes, screening interview, committee interview, you know, and then depending on if it's a teacher or an admin position, a Board of Ed interview. Is there a better way of doing it? Could we do it in a more efficient way? Onboarding, you know, like I said earlier, making sure that when we're hiring people, They're going through the process, they're getting all of the information that they need to hit the ground running. We're letting them know like what programs they have access to, that they have passwords, that they can access those things.
I get all that. I just want to stop at the committee though. So we're going to ask people that work here already how we can do a better job bringing in people? Is that the idea? Because you're talking about existing Cold Spring Harbor employees, right? That will constitute the committee?
Yeah, looking at our processes and where, where we can improve upon and what we do well and what we, because I
Would that
think.
be based on, Brian, their experience with employee, like, would you have people then who are more like a department head and their experience with the employees who've come through the process? I just to sort of piggyback on what Mark's saying here, it's unclear then how, if you're selecting people, what is the purpose then? How do they know about the hiring process and how to improve upon it if they aren't maybe a supervisor of
Well,
department?
when we run committees, like when we hire teachers, there are teachers on the committee. So teachers have when the other day we hired maintenance mechanic, we went through the interview process with the maintenance mechanic. We had one of our head custodians, we had one of our maintenance mechanics. So all of our employees are involved in the hiring process throughout their career, whether they're new employees being hired or sitting on committees and helping make decisions about new hires. So it wouldn't just be, yes, it would be administrators and department heads about how are we identifying candidates, how are we making sure we're attracting the best candidates, but it would also be the employees that have gone through the process and how can we make the process better going forward.
Yeah, I see the value of having people in the interview process, but I think we need to have a professional analysis done of how we go to market to try to hire people. Syosset's new super came, I think, from New Jersey. At the board retreat, that superintendent, when he was talking to us, his style was, I'm just going to go around and find the best person in this job. I don't care where they are, I'm going to find that person. And that's how, I mean, we put out a posting, and then we sit back and wait. And I asked that even in, before, like, that can't be the way, that can't be the way, the best way. I would love to see us bring in experts to teach us how to do a better job acquiring talent, and to ask people that aren't experts in that area. I'm concerned we might not have new ideas, new solutions. They're certainly great to vet a candidate because they do they do the job, or they do a job that's tangential, and we do that now in the process. But I really think we have to take a look at our process and think big and think broad and not be afraid to go outside the box. And I would really hope we do something like that. I don't think asking internal people that aren't experts in recruitment and HR to change the paradigm is going to get us very far. That's just my opinion.
My concern is that the job hiring process seems to take a really long time, which I think Mark touched on also. And I think our hope, or at least my hope, when we talked about implementing a plan for hiring, is that we put somebody like you, Brian, in place who knows what they're doing, and that you'd say, like, I'm the quarterback for this position, and here's what I need to get it done this year. So the 3 years for this, I think, is a little concerning to me. And getting a committee together that would take a year to audit the process, I think is not at the pace that we're looking to, and I don't want to speak for everyone on this, but it seems to me that that's going to slow down this process significantly of how we streamline and make more efficient the process to put a 15-person committee in place that takes a year to audit the HR process. That's concerning to me. But I think you probably always have good ideas and are outspoken about it. So why not just tell us what your ideas are and go, I guess is my point.
Just curious, Brian, is there a way of reaching out to your colleagues in other districts and other areas to see what they do, what their process is, to compare it to ours? Is there a consulting firm that we can possibly have come
I mean,
look at our?
you know, I'm a member of LIASPA, Long Island School Personnel Administrators, New York State School Administrators, so I certainly can reach out to
I feel like that might
them
be a
to
good
see what
path instead of
their,
asking
you know,
Jonathan.
I have spoken to a lot of them in regards to the, you know, the platforms, you know, about modernizing our HR, which I believe would streamline our process so that it may not take as long. But I absolutely can reach out to my colleagues and find out what they're doing. Is there, you know, any consultants that they've worked with in regards to, you know, human resources practices in schools? You know, human resources in schools is a lot different than human resources in the corporate world. That's just the way, you know, and it doesn't mean we can't take from the corporate world, but just the laws that we're bound by in schools is just a little different. So I have no problem reaching out and finding out who they work with and what their processes are, and you know, I'm always willing to take from the best and modify it to what meets the needs of Cold Spring Harbor.
And we spend a large amount of our time each year hiring aides, assistants, substitutes, and custodians. I don't think we're going to be recruiting people from California on positions like that.
I think we need to possibly
you know,
look at the
That would
salaries.
be a
for
huge
those.
waste of money
That would be,
and time.
exactly.
No, we have to build an all-star management team, and I think I said Syosset, Jericho's new.
Jericho.
Right, sorry. So, but the, you know, onboarding is so important. If somebody doesn't hit the ground running, they're lost. It's big productivity setback, it's demoralizing. Modernizing HR to be less paper-based. Is there a program you have in mind, like a software program?
Yes, there are 3 companies that are kind of the leaders in school-based human resources platforms. One is Schoolfront, one is Frontline, which we use for other processes, and the other is Oracle. I haven't reached out to those companies because I wanted to present this to the board first. I didn't want to presume anything, but as soon as, you know, you give me the go-ahead, I will reach out to those companies and begin the process of having them come in and provide, you know, presentations about their platforms.
I would reach out to the super that spoke to us at the retreat too. Remember that story he told
Yeah.
about the football coach? That was amazing.
Yeah.
And he did that with other positions. I really think there's that kind of extra mile will get rewarded in a big way. And if we have every exceptional hire exponentially, you know, benefits this district. So it's worth spending the time up front, even if we have to pay to bring in. It pays dividends for many years to come. So this is great, great start. Let's keep refining it.
Absolutely.
Can I ask, when you talk about streamlining the process, are you trying to like weed out people early on?
I think it's just to make the process, it's not necessarily weeding people out, it's just to make the process a little more efficient. You know, when it is very paper-based and you're relying on, you know, whether it's OLAS or any of those other platforms that are, you know, you have to take everything out of OLAS, you have to put it in another, then you have, you know, it takes time to do all of that. If you can get one of these platforms where all of that is self-contained, it just makes the process move along quicker. And I think that would allow us to identify candidates faster and more efficiently.
So that's just a program, a
Correct.
platform. Okay. So is a subcommittee necessary for that, or?
If that's not the direction the board would like to go, then I'm open to moving the process along at a faster pace, if that is what you would
Like you're good. So just
Yeah, we trust you,
you
Brian.
don't need
Just-
to ask, right?
I think you're doing the smart thing and trying to get buy-in from, right?
Yeah,
Just
do it.
go.
But just, we want you to shape it up.
And I will.
We trust you.
Run,
As-
run, Brian,
as
run.
I will
You're a
take the
football
ball and
coach.
run.
Let's go,
I will
right?
take the ball and run.
Thank you. Right.
Thank you, Brian.
Thank you.
Who's up next on our goals and metrics?
Okay, so I just want to begin by thanking the board for setting these goals because it gave us an opportunity to really dig into the programs that we have, the beliefs and foundations that really highlight what makes Cold Spring Harbor a very special place for our students, and really what we value in programming overall. So the first goal really addressed improving our rankings in U.S. News and World Report, and I really wanted to take a look at where does the score itself in U.S. News and World Report come from, and then connect that to what we consider the mastery metrics, right, that we're going to talk about in terms of teaching to mastery, because I really think these two goals go hand in hand. So if we're starting at the 12 o'clock of the wheel, about how the 98.6 score that we earned in U.S. News and World Reports ranks, I wanted to identify all of the components that go into the 98.6 score. So college readiness is one of them at 30%, and I'll describe what each of these contains and go into that in the next slide. I just wanted to give you what the components are. State assessment proficiency is worth 20% in the overall score. State assessment performance is 20%, and we'll talk a lot about underserved student performance at 10% and why it is that certainly can be a limiting factor for a place like Cold Spring Harbor. And then the graduation rate of 10%, in which we're a perfect score, so we'll talk a little bit about that and how we can improve that. And then the college curriculum breadth, which requires a little extensive explanation. So if we're thinking about the College Readiness Index, our participation rate, it's really based on the total number of 12th grade students who took at least one AP by the time that they were a senior. All right, then what it does is it applies this score called a quality adjusted participation rate based on the number of seniors that are earning an AP score of 3 or higher. Right, and so that's really where the score comes from. It's two factors. It's one, what is the total number of 12th graders that are participating in APs and it only looks at 12th grade, right? So at 12th grade, how many have participated in at least one AP? And then it also applies on top of that this quality adjusted participation rate, which is again the number of seniors scoring a 3 or higher. Okay, so that's one of the factors. And we earned a 76%, and I'll get back to that. So we're 33rd, right, overall. For that score. In our state assessment proficiency, we had a 98% value and we were 26. And really that goes based on our state assessments, which remember are our reading, math, and science scores, in which we stand with 100%, 95, and 95, which really calculated our 98%. So that's worth, again, 20%. And then we have our state assessment performance. And again, that compares the state assessment proficiency to this U.S. News predicted value that they predict based on a community similar to ours, which they classify as suburban. They don't really give you a large amount of data in terms of where they came up with the prediction, but they're predicting how they think that we should have scored on our state assessment performance, and then they give us a number as to whether or not we compare to that score based on our scores. So it's not clear, and I dug into the data, they don't give an enormous amount, but we were 289th overall in the nation. Remember, it's a national score. Okay, so now let's take a look at the underserved student performance. And the percentage of, this is really where we fall very short. In fact, when you look at our results from the last publication in U.S. News and World Report, we actually had NA for 3 of the categories that fit under underserved performance. In other words, our numbers are so low that it's not even applicable in terms of calculating our score. So when you think about 10% of our overall score in U.S. News and World Report, and remember that we earned that 98.6%, 10% was not even really fully factored in because we had NAs in that category. So that's going to come into the difference of like where we were compared to, remember there's 8/10 of a decimal between us and the number 1. Right, so remember now 10% now is not really factored in for us, so that's important. Okay, then we look at the graduation rate, and as I said before, we're at 100%, so we're sitting at number 1, we can't get much better than that, and we're actually tied for 100% with 3 other schools, so we're in good standing there. The college curriculum breadth rank was really interesting, so we're number 25, and what it does is it takes the proportion of the 12th graders who took and passed their AP exams in multiple areas, for up to 4. So it'll calculate if they had all the way up to 4 AP exams, it calculates that and it gives you a number. But what's interesting is then it gives this additional factor which says the more exams gives them a higher score. So if we had 10 seniors that only took 1 exam, they get less of a factor of a score than 10 seniors that took 4, right? And then it adds another layer, which is for those that are passing with a 3 or higher, that's more value than those that those that scored higher than a 3 get more factor than those who just got a 3. Right, so it's putting all these layers. So it's difficult to say. And then last is, our overall, the end size of our senior class is relatively small, right, compared to some classes in neighboring districts that we're trying to compare ourselves to. So that's really, really important that we think about that, especially when you look at, if you're a numbers person, right, and you're looking at that, 1 senior out of 10 or 10 seniors out of 100, it's really going to shift what our overall scores are in college curriculum breadth and college readiness index most, right? So that's important for us to understand. Okay, so what does the number 33 mean in New York State, right? So there were 1,233 schools that were ranked in New York. And I provided the link for the U.S. News World Report Public Schools rank list, so you can all take a look at that, especially for the public when this is published, right? Of that top 25 school breakdown, because we're really focusing on, we really want to be up at the top, right? So that's what our goal is. We want to improve what our ranking is. So of that, when I looked at the top 25 schools, 17 of those schools had specific admittance criteria. They were either considered charter or content-specific schools. So if we think about New York City schools, right, we know that many of those schools require specific grades or other things to put them into a content-focused school. Right, so the School of Science, or the Bronx School of Science, those things are an example of where the students take a test, they need to pass that test in order to get placed into that school. So they have specific criteria, which then means, right, they're not dealing with a general public population like we are, right, in all admittance public education school, we take everyone, which means that we consider everyone in our senior class. So 17 of those schools had that, right? So that's important, right, of the top 25, right? And 9 public schools, the number 9 public school in New York, right, scored a 99.4, so 0.8 difference, right? And was number 1 in Nassau, right? So we're looking, we're not far off, right? So Nassau and Suffolk, 5 schools were listed above Cold Spring Harbor. It was Jericho, Garden City, Great Neck, Manhasset, and Wheatley. And what's really interesting, and I'm going to bring you back to the last slide. What's really interesting is when we looked at college readiness, state assessment proficiency, and college curriculum breadth, the numbers in these 3 areas fluctuated dramatically for each of these schools, where some schools, for example, that were above us in final ranking, were actually below us in state assessment proficiency, in the 78% or the 82nd, but they were still overall ranked above us. So that's interesting, right? And some of them fell below us in the college curriculum breadth, right? But then we scored higher in other areas, and so it's really, you're seeing oscillations, right? And it really is also going to depend on overall class size, right? That's going to be a factor. So then when we look at, so that was the national and Suffolk breakdown of those 5 schools that were above us. And then of those schools in the top 25, 18 of those schools were New York City public schools. 17 of those schools were the specific admittance, right? We had 1 New York City public school that was not. We had 2 schools that were located in Westchester and 1 located in upstate New York. So when we really think about where Cold Spring Harbor is falling, right, we are right there, right? We're talking about really small tweaks in order to get us right to the very, very top. And you're also talking about some things that we just can't control, right? And that's really important for us to recognize. 10% of that overall factor is something that we just don't have control over, right? And that, remember, is when we look back, it's that underserved student performance.
So the Jericho, Garden City, Great Neck, Manhasset, Wheatley, what is their underserved number?
So it varies between districts, and in fact, what's interesting, if you looked at Niche, I don't know if you watched the Niche, Niche.com just released theirs. Syosset just got edged out. Syosset just edged out Jericho, right? And when you looked at it, it was actually a factor of who was more diverse. So Jericho, although it has a large amount of diversity, it's not as diverse in terms of the breadth of diversity. So they lost some points there in terms of the total number of categories within diversity that they filled, which is always interesting. So the percentage diversity, I believe, we can pull it up. That's why I put the link here so that we could look at it. And hopefully it's easy for me to pull this up. Yeah. So let's take a look.
I thought the category was underserved.
Yes, because
Is that
it can go.
diversity?
It includes diversity. It includes students that are on any type of low income categories. So anyone that are free and reduced lunch, right? It's an ELL population. So there's a lot that goes
And
into.
in these bigger districts, like you might not think of it, but I think Manhasset actually does have an underserved, significant number compared to like a Cold Spring Harbor. There is a population there. Yes. Yeah. So, and I'm sure that's true possibly in other, I just happen to know because I used to work right by Manhasset. Edgemont did well.
That's mine.
I know, number 10. Did you see that?
Yeah,
Yeah, but it's interesting, so Kim, you're saying, like, really these, like, hair of a fraction of a point, and we're up there with, like, Stuyvesant, Bronx Science, which is actually great to hear, right? And that we can't obviously control the diversity factor, which is a huge part of that niche. There's a lot of pay to play with niche too, which is like a conversation for another day. Not that we should, but there's
Correct.
schools who have a
Correct, which is
picture
why
are
we have-
paying
yeah, which
for
is
more
why we're not
engagement.
using
If you don't have a picture, you're not paying for engagement. There's a lot that goes into those rankings, so,
And if
yeah.
you look on Niche, I believe for the last 12 years, there have been 15 people who have submitted a comment. And that's how part of the ranking is
Right, you have to
developed.
ask people to put rankings in, and then your ranking goes up. There's a lot of engagement involved in that too, so.
I just see the underserved and diverse different though. One is.
Well, how you see it and how they categorize it, it's in the
That's
same
what I'm trying to
category.
understand.
Yeah, so
I'm
it's
trying to
in the
understand
same,
their
yeah.
terms.
Yeah.
And then, could you go back to the last slide, that bottom right box, is that adjusted? The bottom right box, is that adjusted, it says, for school districts?
Yeah, so that's where it comes up with a school district that has a similar makeup, right, of that type in New York State. You're given a specific percentage for predicted performance for Hispanic and low-income individuals, but when you have a substantially small low-income and Hispanic set group, it's really difficult for us to take a look at whether or not we're living up to what it is they predicted us to be, right? So, and I can't see those numbers, and that's not, it wasn't fully revealed in terms of where those numbers are coming from. So again, I'm telling you what they're publishing, and I know that under under Cold Spring Harbors, we have NA for the 3 categories for underserved performance.
And one of the things we do have to remember, this is 3-year-old data
Correct.
on how these, so this last year was our best AP rankings in 8 or 9 years. So 2 years from now, in 2027, we're going to, we expect to have a nice jump coming up, but that's how far the data is. But then everything is going to change in New York State. We're going to have to look at different metrics on what's going on. So it is an ever-moving target, and remember, this is 3-year-old data.
Does predicated values for a school of this type in New York State, given percentage of Black, Hispanic, and low income, so?
And it said that we scored somewhat above expectations, but I don't know what that score is. Like, you can't see what that score, like, what score do they assign us? And then how much, like, that's what they ranked us, somewhat above expectations. What does that mean? What is somewhat above
That's what
any
I'm trying to
educator
figure out.
in the world? Right, we want to know what, I need something tangible. I need a number. Give me a number and I'm happy to work with it, but somewhat above is not, is not
It's
enough.
not
right?
clear
So
to me.
It's not clear to me either, so I agree.
So-
And that's why and that's kind of why, we can have this conversation, which is, what are we really leaning into, right? Because we're leaning into this number here under US News and World Reports, but it brings us to, what is it that we believe, right, that's right for the students here at Cold Spring Harbor and our programming. So that kind of brings me into the next part of the presentation. So, we had so many rich discussions as we started to begin to pivot to, what is a portrait of a Cold Spring Harbor graduate? And that is not a portrait of a New York State graduate. It's what we believe here. And I think that we have a lot of latitude here with regard to the state portrait of a graduate and how we see programming and what we want to drive here. And we, at the top, right, we see academics, right? At the very top, that is very important to us. But also what we believe, and based on some of the points of pride that I've heard from community members and student participants, we believe in the arts and music participation. We want student leadership opportunities, as evidenced by Dylan joining us today, right? We want active club participation, as evidenced by the sheer number of clubs that we offer our students. We want athletic participation, as evidenced by homecoming and all of the clubs and athletes that were represented this past weekend. We believe in civic engagement. Pieces of that are showing up in our programming for academics when we think about the seal of civic readiness. Authentic experiences is something that we discussed extensively in my very first participation of the Board of Education meeting, and when we had this goals retreat. We talked about, like, what do the experiences that we give our students and how do they transfer out into the world and career readiness? And then we really focused a lot on, like, where are our students? Where's their development and well-being? We care about what we're presenting to them, how they're dealing with their stresses within the school. We're giving them, right, agency to help them to navigate a lot of challenges while taking on all of these things. So if we think about Cold Spring Harbor graduates sitting in the center of this field, most of our graduates, right, touch base with every single one of these things, which is remarkable. And when you go to other places and you look at some of even the districts that we're looking to edge out in US News and World Report, those districts don't have all of these things in every one of their graduates. They often will focus on academics, or they'll be very strong in leadership and civic readiness. But to say that we have all of these components and offerings for our graduates is a real point of pride, and it speaks to what this community and what this school district offers to students and how well we prepare them for moving forward. So it brings us to talk about...
Can I just say one thing?
Sure.
So that's absolutely a great goal, and we should be proud of it, and well-rounded students will be the best students when they go out into the world. So when our students apply to college and they look at the ranking of Cold Spring Harbor, we might get ding there. Do we make the case to colleges that we're producing a well-rounded students and that a Cold Spring Harbor ranking doesn't tell the full story?
So one of the things I will say is, having a child that just applied to college, right, the school ranking isn't on that list. They do look at the schools and their offerings. So they will look at whether or not a school offers higher level courses.
So they will look at IB and AP, and the student will list all of the the IB and AP courses that they're involved in. They will also compare the student as to whether or not they took some of the highest level course offerings. But there's a whole section that asks the students what else that they contributed to a community, because the colleges are looking for people that build into the college culture and contribute to the campus culture and can give back to the community with which they're participating in.
Thank you.
So I think that's really important. Okay. So that brings us to teaching to mastery, right? Because that was also one of the factors that I was charged with taking a look at under curriculum instruction. And I think teaching to mastery and mastery learning, they go hand in hand, right? Because if we're teaching to mastery, then students should be embracing whatever it is that we're offering them in the classroom. They should be learning. They should be gaining conceptual understanding of the standards and the concepts that we're trying to drive across multiple curricula, as well as interdisciplinary connections. They should have a growth mindset when they leave the four walls. They should be reflective in terms of what they've presented and ways where they can improve. They should be collaborative, right? And they should have all these opportunities through enrichment. And certainly, we should be continuously assessing them in terms of where they measure at entry point, at a grade level, or in a course, and where they're finishing, right? Because we're monitoring progress and we believe in growth mindset. So that brings us to the academic mastery metrics that we feel we really should begin to marry ourselves to and present to the board on a routine basis as we begin to evaluate our overall programming. So if we start, remember at the top I said one of the biggest factors that we pride ourselves in is our academics. Right, so if we look at academic progress monitoring, we want to understand what we currently are collecting mark and period failure rates. We are currently collecting term GPAs and course failure rates. So let me explain. Anything that is green is what we are currently doing. Anything that is red is what we'd like to implement moving forward. And we're looking at course failure rates. We want to examine, and this is one of the areas that I really feel like need a deeper dive and look at, what is our MTSS, and for those and RTI engagement. So if you think about MTSS, really essentially it's a multi-tiered structural support system. So it's looking at what types of classroom supports at level tier 1 are we putting in for our regular education students, and how are they improving if we implement those tier 1 supports. How many of our students are moving to the need for tier 2 or removing themselves from an MTSS plan after we initiated specific supports in the classroom. And then how many, what RTI engagement stands for response to intervention. So in other words, what is the student overall response to the intervention? And do we need to take a look, and this is one of the things that I see us really taking a deeper dive into, is when we implement one single tier 1 support, there has to be a prescribed time frame in which we implement it. There has to be metrics to measure whether or not the student is succeeding. And then we need to reconvene and identify whether or not there needs to be another permutation or combination of supports that are applied for that student in a regular education setting before we move into any higher level supports. So we want to start with least restrictive, and that's really, really important. Okay, so that's the academic progress monitoring that we'd like to do. If we think about rigor and assessment tracking, currently we're looking at the total percentage of students enrolled in honors and upper AP level. You can see why that kind of goes to the U.S. News and World Report, right, category. But we want to take a look at what percentages of our students are enrolled in multiple honors and upper AP level. We want to see what that actual number is. And we should be looking at that in December of each year. And the reason why is because there's an add drop period, and that at December is the cutoff. So after that cutoff, we want to see not just who's registered, but who stays in our AP courses after seeing how it works and making their add drop choices. And then we want to look at standards mastery. We're moving, if we think about, this is a long-term goal. In the lower elementary, we just implemented the standards-based report card. We're moving towards a standards-based report card in grades 2 through 6. But standards-based mastery is now continuing as we look at the new New York State Regents exams. We're able to more closely correlate what those standards mastery levels will be. So that's long-term, but we can start with the ones that we're pretty clear on at this point. When we think about the Regents and AP results, I talked earlier this year about us, analyzing that using a GAPS and WASA data report and analysis. You saw some of the GAPS and WASA reports last week when I presented the data meeting. We want to look at the Regents score regionally and New York comparison, and I think that came up here, like, are we comparing ourselves to the right area or region? We should be comparing ourselves to schools that run on parallel to the rigor that we offer and not necessarily all Suffolk County schools, and I kind of talked about that. That's why we take a look at Nassau, and that's also why I pull my colleagues to see where we actually stand against them as well. And then, of course, you saw last week, we want to track cohort trends. So all those things are currently done, but it's really important for us to continue that work. And then it's important us for once we look at this work and we present this to the board, also taking a look at what is it that we do with this data, right? So how is it that we dig in with the teachers? What do we do for vertical and horizontal alignment, showing them where the incoming cohort was when they left at the previous year, to make sure that we stitch together any of the gaps that exist. So,
How do you measure RTI?
So we actually could bring in a program. We have a couple software programs where they actually record the interventions that have been put in place for each child, the frequency and duration, collect the data in terms of the response to intervention, and then you do a deep dive analysis in terms of whether or not the intervention was successful. So we would bring in an RTI program. There's RTI Direct. There's a couple. Frontline actually has an RTI piece which we currently own, and then there's some other programs that I can take a look at.
How do you measure standards mastery?
So, standards mastery comes, we can take a look at it from the terminal assessments. Each of the terminal assessment questions are linked to a specific standard. So we could take a look at, based on the question that the students miss or get correct, whether or not they've actually achieved mastery. And we could look at the percentage of the overall cohort that got specific questions correct, and then align it to the standards to identify standards gaps.
Okay.
First of all, I like the way this is presented with the details about how it's all broken down specifically with where we lose points too, because I feel like that, I don't know, I personally feel like that was never explained to me, but I also appreciate you striving to maintain the standards here in Cold Spring Harbor, especially because it seems like New York State is moving the other way, right? They're lowering the standards. And I just wanted to say on record that in Cold Spring Harbor, this is, to me, is really important that we keep moving in this direction, because at the last NYSBA, New York State's Boards Association annual business meeting, they actually opposed the resolution that was put forward to keep standards as high as possible. The DEI committee opposed it and had a lot to do with equity. So I appreciate this, and I know they like to call it a New York, the state graduate, but here in Cold Spring Harbor, we're gonna keep moving in that direction, and I appreciate you doing this. Thank you.
Okay, so then maybe to continue, when we take a look at the PSAT and SAT and ACT benchmarks and attainment, I think, all of this really is going to translate, and I think, Mark, you brought this up really to what does it mean for college, right? So we want to see, how our PSAT, SAT, and ACT benchmarks are moving towards college acceptances. We want to see what those numbers look like overall. We have not currently presented to the board or in past presented to the board whether or not students are actually getting the program fit that they're looking for. So in other words, when they're applying to college, they're applying for specific programming. What is the percentage of our students that actually land where they really are aiming to land? And I think that's important. And that also goes to matriculation, right? So how many of them actually stay matriculated in the university or college that they are accepted to and start out with. And then we're currently tracking scholarship money, but I don't necessarily know if it's ever been provided to the board in terms of a report, so that's pretty easy for us to go ahead and provide. Any questions before I move on to the next set of metrics? Okay, so, then, we talked about that wheel and the things that really make us most proud about our programming. And so, one of the things that we really value here is our overall participation rate in athletics. And we believe that it's important to raise well-rounded students that are able to to manage and master their performance on the athletic field equally as well as they are in the classroom. We also know that, their athletic participation and access lends to college acceptances, so I think that that's also really important to us here. So we want to take a look at the percentage of students that are in a greater than 2 seasons or 2 or more seasons, and that can be done at the end of the year. And then it's interesting, we'd like to see what the percentage of tryouts, students that actually try out for a sport versus the students that end up in our rostered seats. And for some, we have unlimited openings, like track, right? And then in others, right, we have limited spaces, and like, what does that look like? We'd like to take a look at dual enrollment, college credit, and diploma distinctions. I think this is really important as we engage in, this is our first year of the Seal of Civic Readiness and Biliteracy. If you're a member on the wheel, we really value civic engagement. So I'm interested to continue to watch how many of our students apply for the seal as we continue to advertise and identify the value of the seal as the state shifts to a single diploma. And seals are going to be the item on the diploma that are distinction. Will we have an increase in students that then start going more for the seals pathways? We'd like to take a look at our total number of credits per year. We currently have it, but I don't necessarily know if we provided it to the board. And that really means how many credits are each of our students by grade level actually taking? In other words, courses. Are there breaks in certain years? Like, do we have a lighter load at senior year? Is there room? Do we have a heavier load in junior year? What do the actual credits actually translate to? Because that can also factor in our overall rankings when we think about how many are taking AP courses and what does that look like. So I think that that's important. But what's new and that we'd like to explore is work study and career placement, as well as capstone projects. And I've talked a little bit about some workforce readiness programs, internships that, again, that goes to real world applications and application of multiple discrete skills into one actual career, which is really what we're trying to prepare our students for. And I do believe that these opportunities will help our students to end up having a better grasp or understanding of where they want to head when they leave Cold Spring Harbor and go into a major at a college, right? That those experiences will help to shape that, because students essentially don't know what they don't know, right? So if we don't give them experiences that connect all of the disciplines that they've learned discretely across time, then they don't know how each of them may fold into a career opportunity. We'd like to also look at student behaviors, and this is one that I really feel strongly about, right? So what is the attendance rate? If we're talking about teaching to mastery, we could teach to mastery all day long, but if student attendance rate is poor, then that's not helpful, right? And if we look at, what is happening in years where AP scores and, for seniors and juniors is really, really important as we look at college transcripts, we'd like to know what are the attendance rates, what are the cuts per marking period, are any of our students receiving infractions? And lastly, which is really a partnership with the community, how much time is being spent on assessments, right? A lot of our assessments have turned digital. We can actually see the total amount of time and minutes that students spend, not just on the whole assessment, but even on portions of the assessment. So it's really interesting. We may have some students that are racing through an assessment, some students that may be running out of time, and it's a stamina issue. And that's also partnering with parents, because when we're as we implement benchmark assessments across the K all the way through to 12, one of the things that we're encouraging parents to do is to help to make sure that their child is actively participating and really trying their very best on any type of assessment that we do, especially those that are in our digital platforms, which a lot of our assessments now are shifting to, and that's really important for students. In order for them to gain stamina, they need to actively participate in these types of assessments over time. So we're going to start measuring and reporting out what that looks like. So when we think about program quality and experience, we want to make sure that we're tracking leadership roles. So we've already created a document where the leaders in district can identify when we have students in leadership roles. So Dylan is on that list, right? What that leadership role look like what those opportunities might be. And we can report that out by marking period, semester, or end of year. We'd like to look at student exit surveys. And I think that's one thing that we've never really looked at, right? So students evaluating what that experience was like in a course, in a program, in their application process for the Seal of Civic Readiness. what did that feel like? What are things that we could do better to maintain engagement over time and to help them to firmly grasp the curriculum. We'd also like to track the number of performances and publications and competitions. While we report out to that regularly and we board about meetings and highlight students, we don't really have a running document, right, of the total number of performances or publications or competitions that we've won and in what categories and what department they might be associated with. So I think that would also show the breadth of our programming and the opportunities that we give to our students. And that goes along with awards and recognitions. We always print that out for our seniors, right? It's in the diploma, in the graduation the program. So we have that, but it would be nice to look at what that looks like going into junior year, and even though their application for like the National Honor Society does require them to record that, we don't necessarily have a document where it actually compiles it. So I think that would be interesting to see, and that would also be a way for us to identify: are there things that we could get involved in that we're not? Are there neighboring districts that are giving opportunities to students that we see them winning awards and we're just not involved and we didn't know? So I think that's a good opportunity for us to kind of evaluate what our reach is in terms of competitions and experiences. And then, what is our audience reach in terms of any of these performances and competitions, and who's in attendance, like how many people were supporting our students, because that's also important, right? The more support that they receive from our community and from our parent population and from our administrators, the more likely that we're going to see more participate over time. And then let's take a look at what the community service hours look like. Where are our students involved in community service? They report it out individually in their applications, but we don't always necessarily track it and see where they are. And I think seeing where they are might help us to place them maybe in a wider breadth of opportunities. So I think that could be valuable. And then we want to look, obviously, because all this transcends into what happens after they leave here. So we'd like to take a look at, well, what are our college athletic commitments looking like? Where are our music and fine arts clubs and scholarship placements happening? And what does our alumni participation look like? Can we get alumni back here? Can they serve as mentors? Can they act as networks, right, for students that are in the process of going to college, wanting to get involved in clubs and other things at the college level? And that connection to a former Cold Spring Harbor graduate, I think, could be really, really valuable.
So first of all, I love the idea of student exit surveys. I think we'd actually talked about them, I feel like, in a board meeting, especially after like a new class. If it's the first time a class is being run, I think it's helpful for other students to see, or for the administration to see how the class went. So I love that idea. I think it's great. But so I'm questioning, so as part of the mastery, athletic participation and access, is there a reason, and maybe I missed it, but is there a reason that you focused on athletic participation and access as opposed to, like arts or, drama or music?
Sure. So I thought, really I had, the performances and publications and competitions was right below under program quality and experience. Mm-hmm. So that would fit under the arts and where they are. So I just separated because they were really separated in the overall chart that I had here. So I kind of I separated athletics and arts and music. So arts and music really is through what competitions they are. It would be NISMA and things like that. So that would be count for there. And then it would be for performances. So we would be tracking those as well.
And like how many kids tried out for the show or something and didn't make it?
We can certainly add that. Absolutely.
I mean, that just sounds so similar to trying out for a team.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, we can definitely do that.
I was actually on the same line. The student exit surveys, I think, are terrific. I was wondering if they would be done for every student moving up to a new year, or is it seniors only? But then Lisa even mentioned even new classes. So how granular are you going to get on those?
I mean, we can certainly get granular where we administer an exit survey. We use one particular course, or subject area where they're all participating, no matter what the grade level, in an exit survey that evaluates courses, and it would be a drop-down menu where they identify what courses that they were enrolled in, and then they could fill out the ratings for that. That's easy enough to do. But I think that the mandated courses are probably not what we would rate, just because those are New York State mandated, they end in Regents, we have a sequence of them, there's not really a choice
right, in terms, so I think it's more when they start to branch off, right? They start to branch off into their choices for APs, their choices for electives, right, their choices for a seal pathway, those types of things. So it makes probably the most sense for us to administer the surveys to those types of courses, where they're making choice to be in that course and what their experience is really.
Like it would have been helpful for, some of the capstone classes, right? Because, they've only been going on for 1 or 2 years, so, yes, the teacher says, oh, it was great. It was a great class, and I'm sure it was a great class. But a lot of times the kids want to know, just a little bit more.
I believe there was for the research class, there was a survey that was administered by the teachers, so there was a survey for that.
The research class
The
last
AD
year.
research, yes.
Is that made public, or is that
I
kept?
think it was just the school, I was not here when that was administered, but I
It
believe
wasn't made
there was.
public, the teacher saw it, and we reviewed with the teacher, the findings.
Yeah.
And those would be anonymous, so the students.
I want the students to feel safe and
Right.
free to be able to
Good.
answer it. So,
Yes.
we can either relate it to the school ID and then redact that data and then, like de-identify it. Either way, like I would want the students to be able to feel free to be able to answer it, because especially if we're surveying prior to the graduation, they may have that teacher again, so I want them to feel comfortable
Exactly.
being able to fill that out.
Is there any way, though, that can be used to help students decide whether or not they want to take that class? Like the upcoming students?
I mean, we could certainly look at that. We want to be careful because remember, our overall student size is small, right? Our class size is small. So we don't want to shift students in one direction or another. I think a better way to identify whether or not a class is appropriate is to have students that are in the class describe what the class is like, right, to help. You know what I mean? So that might be a better way. If there's a curiosity for a class, talk to a student that has already taken it,
But maybe as part of, the survey, if you could describe to an upcoming
Exactly.
student,
We could use that language.
that would be,
to
I think,
advertise to
super
the course.
helpful, for a lot of classes.
Some of that is lagging. Student schedules are pretty much made before the year end is
Yeah.
out. So if you're going to wait to the end of the school year to do, like typically in college, you do that at the end of the course, your schedule, we're 99% done making the master schedule for the following year already.
Right,
So
but,
it'll be a year lagging if you're
Yeah.
going to see any information.
yeah,
So
but I
this year
think
we
if we
wouldn't have that
have,
for the choices that are being made, but we could do it at the end of this year so that next November,
If
when
we-
people are starting to think
yeah, if we
about it,
started to
they
have a
have results.
library
Yes.
of that, that could be helpful for students.
And we actually just found out today, you may not know this, Kim, we have 15 AP capstone awardees this year. We just got the information this afternoon from the AP College Board.
Put them on my list.
Recognized by the next board meeting, and it'll be in Friday notes.
Does that
Names.
go on their college application?
They can, absolutely, yes, and they're seniors.
Okay,
So I don't know if they found out themselves through their College Board application, the College Board site, or we're going to get a letter out to them tomorrow or the next day informing them, but we just found out this afternoon.
so, and I'm sorry to harp on this.
No, that's great.
So are those students so to do capstone, you have to do a AP seminar and you have to do AP research?
Yes, they have to
And
score
other
3 or higher in
APs.
both.
But do,
A 3-year higher on both of those exams, and a 3-year higher on 4 additional AP exams.
okay, so
There were
this,
27,650 students who were eligible in the United States, and we are the home to 15 of them.
that is amazing. Are those 15 students that were recognized ones that completed AP research in their junior year? Or are they currently
I
taking?
can't,
AP
they would
research?
have to have taken it already. because
They would have to have
score.
taken it. So students that are doing AP capstone and taking AP research their senior year, colleges won't know that they
No,
are.
'cause they haven't taken the exam yet.
Got it,
There's
okay.
no way to know.
All right. But it'll be on their grad,
It'll be on the transcript when they graduate, yes, as under their awards and recognitions.
You have an opportunity also to update, once they get to school, then you go to the counselor at the school, and then you can update wherever it is that you've earned APs and distinctions, so that's definitely, but
Yeah.
it wouldn't be a factor in terms of their acceptance.
But part of the function is you need to take that exam if they're doing it as a senior.
okay.
I would imagine college could look to see, you've made the criteria, other than this one exam, you've got 4 exams, 3 or higher, you did 3 on the first one, and now you're taking the other.
And you're enrolled.
You could probably, they can guesstimate you're going to be there, but not 100%, that you're on track to get it. But you have to wait till you take the exam. Michelle, thank you for having that number, 27.
Numbers,
I
right
didn't
there.
have that number. Thank you.
Okay, so then I'm going to hand the floor over to Jeanette Alamina.
Thank you. Good evening, Board of Education, Mr. Montecero, and the distinguished Cold Spring Harbor community. I am Jeanette Alamina, Director of Counseling. I'm beyond excited to share highlights of what the Counseling Department has accomplished thus far, as well as what we're looking forward to in the year ahead. Although we are only 8 weeks into the new school year, the counseling team has been diligently implementing new strategies and initiatives designed to help all students become future ready. We are committed to meeting the board's goals, and tonight I will share how we are working as a team to ensure that we meet the following goal, which is to strengthen the college application experience by implementing tools and strategies that promote earlier preparation, improve communication with students and families, and provide clear progress tracking. In doing so, we strive to empower every student to confidently navigate their journey and reach their post-secondary goals. So the highlights of our work this year, so we are focused on providing access, communication, visibility. So for the first time, all juniors can now attend the college rep visits on campus, giving more students the opportunity to connect directly with admissions representatives. So you can find the full visit, this college rep visit schedule on our website, which I'll share more about our wonderful revamped website. Today, we had, it's been many years since Princeton University has come in and have chat with our students, our juniors and seniors, and so they learned about holistic review, and even Princeton would like to find out what are our students' passions. They know that our students are academically strong, and they strive for excellence when it comes to taking rigorous courses and challenges, but they also want to know what their passions are beyond the classroom, beyond the academics. And so I will touch upon a little bit more about our programs that we will enhance the student college and career readiness. So notifications, as you notice, we have sent over, I would say, 40 different notifications through Parent Square and Student Square, and we encourage students to get on Student Square, as well as read all notifications through our school counseling Canvas pages. And so all of our Parent Square notifications are now linked to our revamped website. And so we want to, again, provide easy access to everyone, community members, families, students, through the website, and just to be notified about all of the great opportunities that not only the department has to offer, but the district has to offer. As we are, this is not just a school counseling or Department of Counseling goal, but this is a district-wide initiative and a goal that we are all sharing together. We will continue recording our evening presentations. We started that last year. We're so excited to have our new YouTube channel that is dedicated to our counseling events. And so if there is, in the future, we're aiming to do tutorials on Naviance. I know that that's a very popular ask from the families that, hey, we want to learn more about Naviance and how we can support our students doing the scholarship search and college research, and do the scattergram, and do a career interest inventory. We want to support our students. We want to support our parents supporting the students at home while completing these wonderful college and career readiness platforms and exercises.
I have a quick question about Naviance. I don't want to take you off, and tell me if this is coming up later, but Naviance, it looks like it's still not updated. Is it right that it says the test information is 2015, 2016 on Naviance? When you look at the scattergram, it says this information is 20.
It should be
most
up to
recently
date.
updated?
It should be up to date
Okay.
with updated data, as I am regularly uploading SAT and ACT.
That's what
scores.
I thought it was up to date. So I'll show you
Yes.
later, maybe offline, just
Yes.
what I saw. tonight, because
know
it
that
made
we
me a
can
little
look.
nervous that we've been making all of these like big life decisions off of data that then I thought, oh my gosh, does this really say
So after
2015, 2016?
After each administration, I receive access to our scores,
Yeah.
SAT as well as ACT scores, and PSAT scores as well.
Yes.
And those are uploaded immediately after I receive them or have access.
Okay, so I probably just read something wrong, so don't worry, I'll show it to you after. You can tell me what I read wrong. Thank you. Perfect.
So counselors are currently leading classroom lessons. So the 12th graders received a classroom presentation by the counselors with regards to the college application process. That was right after our September 15th college night. Last week, our 9th graders were visited by the counselors to learn more about the high school, the opportunities, extracurricular activities, honor societies. We want to make sure that our grade 9 students are fully aware of the opportunities ahead of time so that they're not like come junior year like, oh, we didn't know that we had to complete 20 hours of community service per year in order to fulfill that National Honor Society criteria. And so we want to make sure that our students are getting the information early in their career. Ms. Pickering is also meeting with students in the classroom as well as in groups to talk about Naviance. The 8th graders will learn more about the transcript, which this year 8th graders are taking for the first time high school level courses, whether it is a world language, a math, an algebra 1, or life science biology, and what does that mean in June when they they sit for the Regents exams. So these enhancements make opportunities and information more accessible, keep families informed, and give students the tools they need to succeed. So streamlining the college process, we've taken steps to simplify and organize the application process for students. We want to make sure that we are demystifying the very intimidating, ever-changing, ever-evolving college admissions, college application process. And I am a parent of a sophomore undergraduate who, just recently went through the whole college application process. And believe you me, despite the many degrees and 18 years of experience in school counseling, it just, we cannot certainly predict what colleges will say at the end of the day and the decision outcomes of each student. And so we are just, I am working, we're all working hard at picking our college rep visits, reps' brains in terms of like what makes the perfect, candidate to gain a seat at your university. And so there's a myriad of responses. And so once again, I understand as a parent, and I also understand from a perspective of multiple learner ability. So I understand that a student with an IEP or a 504 with testing accommodations do have various, pathways, as well as there are extra services that perhaps families are not informed. And so our job is to ensure that the counselors are pushing out, that we are pushing out that information. And my job is to ensure that our counselors are well informed and attend PD opportunities. Yes?
Do you track which schools that the counseling department has relationships with, either strong or no relationships? And do you have a plan for the ones where you don't have a strong or even any relationship to try to establish one? Because my perception was there are certain schools that we don't get admitted to and that the counseling department doesn't really have a deep relationship with.
So this is my second year as I am assessing that very good point. I think that once the college representatives come in, I make a point of making a contact and I follow up with the rep. But each individual meeting, we have a counselor also sitting in and asking questions and connecting. And if it's 2 or 3 counselors that are definitely going in, they're going in and making those connections. I will talk about this soon, but I'm also connecting so that they can come back. And other colleges, college reps will come back as we want to do an in-house college fair. I think that the more connections we have, the better. We also are committed to go and visit them. I think colleges do like when we demonstrate interest as a team. And so we have counselors going to various universities. We have planned to go UConn, Yale, UMass. And again, we understand that every student has their list, their top choices, and they may not be your typical Ivy League school. But can I just tell you that the class of 2025, 87.1% of students are currently enrolled in highly selective schools, which means acceptance rates of 30% or less. And so we want to continue establishing those relationships and those connections because we want to send, send our students to wherever they want to go. So I think that having the connection is quite important. Thank you for that feedback. I will definitely, take note and make that a priority. We are in the process, we're definitely being proactive on establishing new relationships with reps. The other thing that we need to pay attention and that we know as counselors, director of counseling, is that it's a high turnover position. So the college reps, we see John, from let's say Fairfield is our rep, and then next year we have, Lucy is our new rep. And so it is hard, but not impossible. And I will assure you that we will establish a stronger connection. I do have, from my previous districts, connections and good relationship. At the end of the day, we just want to make sure that they see our amazing students, and the kids will definitely take it from there. So definitely I prioritize that, and thank you so much.
I have a couple of questions. So one is, do you feel that you have enough in your budget to travel to all the schools, considering that kids now from Cold Spring Harbor are really, sorry Joe, but are looking, right,
Yes.
Are looking in other geographical areas, like the schools you mentioned, that sort of, like, that's my comfort zone as a parent, but for my children, it seems to be that they want to be south, and I keep going, what about the Northeast, But they're like, oh no, we want to be, I'm like, but I could drive and bring you lunch.
I was going to
Yes.
say that before you actually, then we discussed increased visitation by our college counselors or
Yes.
guidance counselors to do just that, to
And-
visit the school. That there's no substitution from going. I think
Because it's
COVID went more
expensive to
virtual.
fly places, but I think
better
it
to be
is
there.
worthwhile
Absolutely.
to get people on the road. Certainly, I think that that's great, and I'm glad to hear you guys are doing that. And then the other thing I was going to say, just to Bill's point, and I mean, I'm a high school and middle school admissions person, but what I do in my office and what we've really done strategically this year is looked at all the schools we want to build better sending school relationships with, and we have like the list, and then our team, we split it up, and we hit all of them, and we're either visiting, like I'm going tomorrow to visit a school at lunch, like we're going to see all of these people, and then having them reciprocally come to us, and we're tracking it, so fall, spring, and then the following year, and we're going to keep it tracking. So also, because hopefully there won't be turnover in my office, but I always say if we win like the Powerball, then whoever comes in after us can see what those relationships were also. But also, conversely, then when the new person comes in at Fairfield, you could say, oh, Lucy, we used to have such a great relationship with so-and-so, and she may know, everyone knows each other.
Something Jeanette
She
did.
may know him.
I'm sorry. I apologize. Something Jeanette did this year was revamp she mentioned that a counselor will be in each of the meetings, revamp the form that they used to fill out. So in case you saw college X, but it's your student asking about it, you have that same information to help share about what's going on in that college. And it's kind of universal. It was a really nice revamp to get that information shared amongst all the counselors.
Yeah, it's great. And then when you talk about surveying students, maybe it is worth surveying students even in the end of their junior year to say, what schools have you seen and what's high on your list? Because I know you and I had an email exchange, and thank you, got that going, but that, a college rep who's popular with a number of kids was going to be on Long Island but wasn't coming here, and you got them to come back and come here, which is amazing. But to get ahead of that, just the top 10 schools that come up in that survey might be helpful, just to approach them and say, you're really popular with our kids this year.
Thank you for the feedback. During our the junior college planning meetings in the springtime, the counselors do sit down with the student and the parents to discuss their final or almost final college list. So we can always during that time, send out a survey, a follow-up survey in terms of what are your top, choices of schools that you would like to connect, and maybe even at the younger grade levels, perhaps 10th grade.
Yeah, because people would fill that out, especially if you said it so we can do outreach to the admissions reps from these schools, right, to try to get them on campus. I think that you'd get a pretty high return on those surveys.
Going back to the budget, and do we have enough money to send, our counselors to college visits, et cetera? It's funny you mentioned, because Joe and I are meeting on Monday to discuss our budget, and I was just going to ask, probably more money. So this is a preliminary. So that's definitely in the works, so thank you for that.
Sure, no, that seems like an important investment.
I think it's excellent to build relationships, and there's no better way to do it in person. I just wanted to ask you, Mr. Taylor, is there anything in their agreements and scope of work that prohibits or prevents them, or they don't have to go travel?
No, nothing that prohibits it. I think we would work with the counselors to, oh, sorry. No, there's nothing in their agreements that would prohibit them from traveling. I think we would work with the counselors to, ensure that, we're not sending the same counselors across the country or down south every year, kind of do it on a rotational basis so that it's fair for them and their families.
And is that considered accepted practice for counselors to
Yeah.
ask them to go travel, and there's not going to be...
Every school district I've ever worked in,
They
counselors
travel.
have always traveled to colleges to create relationships with reps.
Excellent.
And I would say our counselors used to do that much more than COVID really changed everything. But as speaking with you, I would say we really need to go back, because I agree that
Yeah,
in-person
it's great.
relationship is better than any other way to go about
So
it.
we're building, we're getting there. We had a counselor that went to last summer, went to High Point. So we're just, again, I think that sitting down, communicating, and also gathering information in terms of like, which schools should we go and visit, and just divide and conquer, and just visit and come back and gather the information, come back and share out and share it with you guys.
I think we're converging on like a bigger point here, right? So we talked all tonight about our rankings and the portrait of a CSH student, and right, so part of this all culminates with what is the message we want to give to the schools, right? Because they look, whether it's a student or a school, they get overwhelmed with more applications than they can possibly ever really comprehend, and so it's really important, that last piece where we have solid, consistent talking points, for lack of a better word, where we talk about the great aspects of the school and we get them excited to think about us, just like we're excited to think about them.
And we're very optimistic, and definitely we're working really hard to get that and continue that goal.
And Bill, you're right on. It's our students are performing academically. I think Kim and we've been, and Jen has been saying, and everyone, is those other things that really help separate us.
Right.
Okay, you have the 3.9 GPA, you've done this, but the club, the activity, all these other experiences is what's going to separate that little tip you over to get into
Right,
school.
when you look at Naviance, everybody's got a 3.9.
Oh, right there.
4.1, so it takes
It's
the
very
other
dense.
things to
Right.
make the message a little
Those
clearer.
little differences.
And so, if I may, I think it's, it doesn't matter at this point, in terms of my talking points, but if I may, last year we brought in 2 college representatives to discuss the essay, right, and essay writing, and that is, as our rep from Princeton said, that is the student's voice. That is their chance, their opportunity to speak directly to the admissions reader, the reader. And so letters of recommendation are based on others talking about the student, but the essay is actually that student's voice. And that's the opportunity to share the other non-academic, the other, whether it is a video of that student playing the cello, or, attaching a YouTube video about their experience working with individuals with disabilities, or at a nursing home. So what makes them, sets them apart is actually what is viewed as it's a great asset, because colleges do know that our students are strong in academics and opportunities, but they just want to hear more about the other aspects of them as human beings. So, and we are definitely coaching them and guiding them along and informing parents about the importance of that as well.
So one more comment. I know we're tracking like community involvement
Yes.
and things like that, volunteerism. The message is, oh, you need volunteer hours, but I think it would be great if the counseling department can sort of find opportunities to connect students to those types of things and get that message out really early, because by the time you're a junior, it's really a little bit too late to build that resume. So,
Yeah, so
I think you have an opportunity.
that's a great point. Last week, the counselors mentioned the importance of extracurricular activities and volunteering, and that's why we also linked to volunteer opportunities, summer opportunities, as well as activities and clubs handbook to our website, but also to share that again in the classroom, individual meetings, and just spread the word so that, again, and then repeat, and repeat.
I don't think Jeanette's really highlighting the work she's done on the website. She's really condensed all the information for students to go as a one-stop shop on the guidance website. All the opportunities for volunteers over the summer, experiences, really making it simple, the seals that they can earn with the criteria. So exactly what you said, though, you could start in 8th grade or 7th grade, start building that up, because 11th grade is too late. She made it very simple for them to get there. And the counselors have been showing the students in there. And I think next week, Wednesday, is a 10th grade presentation. There's one there's one every week. It will be, it's coming up. There's one every week. It seems like they'll be highlighting it there for parents to see it too. So she's been doing a great job on that. Thank you, Jeanette.
And again, to demystify and just simplify the process, we created a checklist and timeline, and it's a one-pager, simple, that students can look at in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and seniors. They can look at the tasks, responsibilities that they need to accomplish per, month by month. So I think that one of the, points of pride is the expansion of information and outreach. So we can continue to broaden our outreach and provide earlier access to college and career readiness resources. So last year we shared programming information with 6th grade families, highlighting the benefits of advanced coursework. I think this was mentioned at a previous board meeting in which all students in families grade 6 through 11, rising 7th graders, rising 12th graders, received a notification about all the academic opportunities and the course offerings. And last year was the debut of the advanced courses offered at the junior high. So we ensure that that families and students were informed. We also increased our awareness of career and technical education programs, giving students additional pathways to success. And so what that means is that we've had the Wilson Tech and Lisa reps coming in to talk to our students, and so we will do that again, because we do recognize and understand that students want to engage in other pathways, whether it is aviation or musical theater or dance, and so we respect that, and we empower students with the connections and the resources. All junior and senior high school families are invited to our counseling presentations. So, like our college financial aid night, I had a mixed grade level audience. So despite where the families are at in terms of grade level, we have been committed to invite everyone to the party, basically, so that they can enjoy and grasp and take notes from our presenters and our speakers. Counselors are meeting individually with students for goal-setting sessions, and so the counselors have already met and connected with the 9th grade students. Ms. Piperin has also been connecting, again, that transition year from 6th to 7th, from 8th to 9th, so she has been diligently also working with the 7th graders. We've added study skills and time management groups for grades 7 through 11 and continue to share resources as needed with our grade 12 students. So our wellness / 504 chairperson, Ms. Donahue, formerly Ms. Harold, she has done a great job conducting, again, study skills and time management groups for those that need it. And those are definitely with the permission and authorization of the parent. Individual course selections and college readiness meetings have also been expanded to include 7th grade families. In the past, those individual meetings were not being held, and so last year we started having those individual meetings with our 7th grade families. Okay, so what's up and coming? Looking ahead, we have several exciting initiatives planned. So this fall, we're forming a guidance advisory committee to strengthen collaboration and gather input about our programs from stakeholders. So we want to receive feedback in terms of, what programs we have, what's working, what's not working. Input as tonight in terms of, college visits, and exploring having a better connection with college admissions representatives. That type of insight and input and beyond is welcome at the newly formed guidance advisory committee. So pretty soon I'll send a communication with regards to having those. We will have 2 meetings this year, and if need be, a 3rd one. In the spring, we'll offer a Common App boot camp for our juniors and plan to host an on-site college fair during school hours. Our goal is to provide 2 college fairs, one in the fall, so that would be fall of 2026, and one in the spring, and thereafter, obviously, so one in the fall and one in the spring. We will also offer additional college essay review sessions to support students with this important part of the application process. We have established college essay reviews by 2 of our English teachers. We want to not take away, we want to actually support and supplement by having college admissions reps coming in and providing feedback on students' essay drafts. So we feel that that was important. It's something that was done in my previous districts, and so I have connections that I can bring in and have those one-to-one connections and that valuable feedback that the students will get. We aim to support the annual Alumni Day run by our wonderful PTG, and so I will be reaching out to Ms. Gerber to, in support in any way we can to bring back the alum and to have, a meaningful conversation with our parents, but also I would like to expand it to our students. And hopefully, if we can record the event and then share it out with the community. And finally, this is, I'm not sure when this is going to be materialized, but we plan to reconfigure the counseling center to create a dedicated college resource center for students and families where we can have, a room where we can have students come in, have conversations with, college representatives, have, conversations, virtual meetings with coaches at colleges, etc. So we also want to use a space that students can.
We talked all tonight about our rankings and the portrait of a CSH student, and so part of this all culminates with what is the message we want to give to the schools, right? Because they look, whether it's a student or a school, they get overwhelmed with more applications than they can possibly ever really comprehend. And so it's really important, that last piece where we have solid, consistent talking points, for lack of a better word, where we talk about the great aspects of the school and we get them excited to think about us, just like we're excited to think about them.
And we're very optimistic, and definitely we're working really hard to get that and to meet that goal.
And Bill, you're right on. It's our students are performing academically. I think Kim and Jen has been saying, and everyone, is those other things that really help separate us. Okay, you have the 3.9 GPA, you've done this, but the club, the activity, all these other experiences is what's going to separate that little tip you over to get into the
Right,
school.
when you look at Naviance, everybody's got a 3.9.
Oh, right there.
4.1, You know, like, so it takes
It's
the
very
other
dense.
things to
Right.
make the message a little.
Those little differences.
And so if I may, I think it's, you know, it doesn't matter at this point, you know, in terms of my talking points, but if I may, last year we brought in 2 college representatives to discuss the essay, right, and essay writing. And that is, as our rep from Princeton said, that is the student's voice. That is their chance, their opportunity to speak directly to the admissions reader, you know, the reader. And so letters of recommendation are based on others talking about the student, but the essay is actually that student's voice. And that's the opportunity to share the, I guess, the other non-academic, the other, you know, whether it is a video of that student playing the cello or, you know, attaching a YouTube video about their experience working with individuals with disabilities or at a nursing home. So what makes them, sets them apart is actually what is viewed as a great asset, because colleges do know that our students are strong in the academics and the opportunities, but they just want to hear more about the other aspects of them as human beings. So, and we are definitely coaching them and guiding them along and informing parents about the importance of that as well.
So one more comment. I know we're tracking like community involvement
Yes.
and things like that, volunteerism. The message is, oh, you need volunteer hours, but I think it would be great if the counseling department can sort of find opportunities to connect students to those types of things and get that message out really early, because by the time you're a junior, it's really a little bit too late to build that resume. So,
Yeah, so
I think you have an opportunity.
that's a great point. Last week, the counselors mentioned the importance of extracurricular activities and volunteering, and that's why we also linked the volunteer opportunities, summer opportunities, as well as activities and clubs handbook to our website, but also to share that again in the classroom, individual meetings, and just spread the word so that again, and then repeat, and repeat.
I don't think Jeanette's really highlighting the work she's done on the website. She's really condensed all the information for students to go as a one-stop shop on the guidance website. All the opportunities for volunteers over the summer, experiences, really making it simple, the seals that they can earn with the criteria. So exactly what you said, Bill, you could start in 8th grade or 7th grade, start building that up, because 11th grade is too late. She made it very simple for them to get there. And the counselors have been showing the students in there. And I think next week, Wednesday, is a 10th grade presentation. There's one there's one every week.
Yes.
It will be, it's coming up. There's one every week. It
Yes.
seems like they'll be highlighting it there for parents to see it too. So she's been doing a great job on that. Thank you, Jeanette.
And again, to demystify and just simplify the process, we created a checklist and timeline. And it's a one-pager, simple, that students can look at in 9th grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, and seniors. They can look at the tasks, responsibilities that they need to accomplish per, you know, month by month. So I think that one of the, again, points of pride is the expansion of information and outreach. So we can continue to broaden our outreach and provide earlier access to college and career readiness resources. So last year we shared programming information with 6th grade families, highlighting the benefits of advanced coursework. I think this was mentioned at a previous board meeting in which all students and families grade 6 through 11, rising 7th graders and rising 12th graders received a notification about all the academic opportunities and the course offerings. And last year was the debut of the advanced courses offered at the junior high. So we ensure that that families and students were informed. We also increased our awareness of career and technical education programs, giving students additional pathways to success. And so what that means is that we've had the Wilson Tech and Lisa reps coming in to talk to our students, and so we will do that again because we do recognize and understand that students want to engage in other pathways, whether it is aviation or musical theater or dance, and so we respect that and we empower students with the connections and the resources. All junior and senior high school families are invited to our counseling presentations. So, like our college financial aid night, I had a mixed grade level audience. So despite where the families are at in terms of grade level, we have been committed to invite everyone to the party, basically, so that they can enjoy and grasp and take notes from our presenters and our speakers. Counselors are meeting individually with students for goal-setting sessions, and so the counselors have already met and connected with the 9th grade students. And Ms. Pickering has also been connecting, again, that transition year from 6 to 7, from 8 to 9, so she has been diligently also working with the 7th graders. We've added study skills and time management groups for grades 7th through 11th and continue to share resources as needed with our grade 12 students. So our wellness / 504 chairperson, Ms. Donahue, formerly Ms. Harold, she has done a great job conducting, again, study skills and time management groups for those that need it. And those are definitely with the permission and authorization of the parent. Individual course selections and college readiness meetings have also been expanded to include 7th grade families. In the past, those individual meetings were not being held, and so last year we started having those individual meetings with our 7th grade families. Okay, so what's up and coming? Looking ahead, we have several exciting initiatives planned. So this fall, we're forming a guidance advisory committee to strengthen collaboration and gather input about our programs from stakeholders. So we want to receive feedback in terms of, what programs we have, what's working, what's not working. Input as tonight in terms of, college visits and, exploring, having a better connection with college admissions representatives. That type of insight and input and beyond is welcome at the newly formed Guidance Advisory Committee. So pretty soon I'll send a communication with regards to having those. We will have 2 meetings this year, and if need be, a 3rd one. In the spring, we'll offer a Common App boot camp for our juniors and plan to host an on-site college fair during school hours. Our goal is to provide 2 college fairs, one in the fall, so that would be fall of 2026, and one in the spring, and thereafter, obviously, so one in the fall and one in the spring. We will also offer additional college essay review sessions to support students with this important part of the application process. We have established college essay reviews by 2 of our English teachers. We want to not take away. We want to actually support and supplement by having college admissions reps coming in and providing feedback on students' essay drafts. So we feel that was important. It's something that was done in my previous districts, and so I have connections that I can bring in and have those one-to-one connections and that valuable feedback that the students will get. We aim to support the annual Alumni Day run by our wonderful PTG, and so I will be reaching out to Ms. Gerber to, in support in any way we can to bring back the alum and to have, a meaningful conversation with our parents, but also I would like to expand it to our students. And hopefully, if we can record the event and then share it out with the community. And finally, this is, I'm not sure when this is going to be materialized, but we plan to reconfigure the counseling center to create a dedicated college resource center for students and families where we can have, a room where we can have students come in, have conversations with, college representatives, have, conversations, virtual meetings with coaches at colleges, etc. So we also want to use a space that students can come in and also work on their essay. The counselor can go in, perhaps run some groups. So that's the vision in terms of the physicality aspect of the department. This is just a tiny highlight of what's going on in our department. If there are any other questions.
Thank you. It's very exciting. The website looks great. I looked at it at the beginning of the year, and it's totally different. A lot of improvements. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You talking in sign language?
I'll take you to go home.
Go home.
Oh.
Let's say.
Oh.
You can stay if you want, but you can go home.
No pressure.
If you don't go home, I'll go home.
We'll fight to go.
Joe, the change order next instead of the budget so they can get out of here. They've been very patient, sorry. Enduring these.
Came tonight, Joe Lawson, Sal Coco, Eric Jancic, and Kim Testa. I think that what you saw is going to be helpful to you in the work of the Capital Committee, because what the Capital Committee should be doing and what the budget should be doing is supporting the aspirations of our students. You have now a sense of what we have as aspirations for our students, and I think that will be helpful to you in your work. As Mark requested, I will gladly present anatomy of the change order first, and then we'll go to the budget development. So I want to show you some basic definitions for capital work. The capital work is done through the provision of plans that are architectural drawings broken out by the primary trades for any project that is $1.5 million or higher. That threshold is set by the Wicks law in New York State. If it's less than $1.5 million, it does not need to be broken out into the four primes. Beyond the plans, the drawings, there are specifications. A book called the Project Manual is put together with details about the work. And included in that spec book is a set of general conditions that all the trades must be compliant with. And there's a section of specifications for each trade, for each job. We're going to be talking a little bit about Relly tonight. Relly is the electrical contractor who, in essence, sparked this conversation. Section 16 of the spec book is devoted to electrical work. And last but not least, for the committee to understand especially, is that capital work in a school district must be approved by the state education department before the project is put out to bid. Unlike work that we do on our own homes, work that businesses do in the town of Huntington, as an example, who get a building permit from the town, and then their plans are approved by a town planning board. Our planning board is in essence the state education department. So here's what a plan looks like. I know you can't read this, so I did bring, and I will distribute to you a sample plan in miniature. These plans, if you ever see the plans themselves, they're usually about 4 feet tall and 6 feet wide, and then they're legible. There's a drawing like this for each section of the work that needs to be done. And the drawing, the plan, includes notes to the contractor about specific things that need to be done. For example, there's a sample of the way the lights should be installed in the ceiling, detailed on the plan. The specifications are a very, very long list of things that the contractor must perform. The specifications are 40, in the case of this project, they were about 70 pages long, and this is a sample from a spec page. Now, before we actually do the project, we have to put it out to bid. And putting it out to bid on the street involves putting out both the big spec book and the plans that contractors pick up. And after the plans are actually sent out on the street, there are very often addenda that are written and submitted to each contractor. This particular project had 8 different addenda that was sent out before the bids were received. The process results in a bid. A bid is an affirmation by the contractor that he or she can perform the work as specified in the plans and the spec book, exactly the way the architect spelled it out, including the full scope that the architect gave. In this case, the contract was awarded to Raleigh Electrical Contractors. The total amount of this contract was a little north of $3 million. Now, here comes the part about change orders. A change order is a recognition that there was a condition that was not anticipated for one reason or another during the course of the actual construction. I'm going to show you 9 change orders for this project. Each one of them was a change order necessitated by a condition that was either discovered during the course of construction or was a request by the district to do additional work beyond the scope that was laid out in the contract itself. So here's the first one. There was a conduit feeding the boiler room that was in the way of the general contractor's installation of the steel. This change order was broken out into the cost of materials and tooling and labor costs. It was vetted by the construction management firm and by the architect, and the negotiated price for this change was $7,638.90. Now, when I say negotiated, you're not going to see a change order that was rejected by the architect. But I can tell you that there was one change order proposed by the electrical contractor that would have cost $100,000 or more. And the architect said, no, we don't need to do that. You do it our way. And that was done. So the architect, in essence, blocked that change order from happening.
So this change order, go back.
Yes, sir.
Is this was not visible, so that it was a surprise, and there's no way our architect could have foresaw that and had it in the original plan?
That's what I am told. Yes, sir.
A conduit feeding a boiler, that's hidden, I guess?
Mm-hmm. That was in the way of the general contractor putting in steel.
Okay.
This next one, there's an interesting note on this one. The contractor actually asked that he be allowed to add a percentage for overhead and profit, which is a normal practice in the industry. When somebody does work, they're allowed to ask for 5% profit and 10% for overhead costs. I may have that reversed, forgive me. But the overhead is the cost of the work that has to be done in the back office, like the secretarial work, etc. And the profit is what he's allowed to add to the cost of the work.
So you're saying on a change order, they can add the 5 and 10%?
On the change order, yes, if it is not part of the allowance. This change order, remember this, I'm sorry, let me step back a bit. This contract of $3,029,000 included an allowance of $100,000. That allowance was set aside so that the full contract would be only $2,929,000 if no changes were necessary. And in some cases, as you've seen in the past couple of months, when projects have been closed out, there were allowances that were not fully used and returned to the school district. We got $56,000 from one contractor a few weeks ago, $23,000 from another. This particular contract, the allowance was completely exhausted.
I guess I'm confused because I know Mark asked at one of the meetings, many months ago about whether we see on the bids the actual amount of profit, and we were told we don't, and that we weren't entitled to. So I'm not sure, how do we know when this new negotiated change order is done? How do we know what's profit and what's just cost? Because now you're adding to a number we have no visibility into.
Right.
Things like labor and overhead.
Right, I understand. And that's why most architects will avoid at all costs any change orders if they possibly can, because they want to hold the contract within budget. But as I can tell you that I'm not a construction manager, I'm not a contractor, I'm not an architect. So when somebody says to me, this is going to cost $3,603 to do this work, I'm relying on my construction manager and my architect to actually look at that work and say, that's reasonable in terms of the labor that needs to be done, the materials that need to be purchased. I got to tell you, Bill, I would just not know if
Right.
that
No,
was a reasonable number or not.
That's how we ended up with $1,800 square foot bathroom renovations though, because, so that's why we're addressing this. So this was I hope it was client directed, this one, right?
Yes, sir. What happened was that there was a staircase that was reconfigured somehow, and the contractor was asked to install wall-mounted LED strip fixtures and three-way switches at the top and bottom
Who
of the
asked?
staircase.
Who asked?
It was actually done by Brian Graham and approved by James Sturcio.
Bill, you mentioned something that I just want.
What did you mean by the percentage? So they make their percentage on the change order?
I think Joe was saying once you negotiate a change order
Yeah.
value, then they were also entitled to add 5% for overhead and 10%
As long as
for
it's
labor.
not part of the original
Right.
overage allotment.
Right.
Yeah, and that bill is normally, when they put together the $3,029,000 quote, they included in that number what they felt was going to be their profit and their overhead. The change order, if it exceeds that $3,029,000, what they're saying is, well, you didn't catch our overhead or profit on that, so we should be allowed to charge the additional overhead and profit. They call it P&O. And it's 10 and 5, and forgive me, I don't know which one is which. But because it was part of the allowance, each of these change orders, that was already built into their $3,029,000 contract amount. So they were not allowed to charge overhead and profit on any change order that fell within the allowance.
Forgive me for getting to it, but is there a certain number or a certain point where you would need approval that's beyond the business administrator, and when would that be?
In my opinion, every change in a contract should be approved by the Board of Education. Every single change. The $100,000 is your money. It's not mine to spend. So it would be my intention, if I was your business official, to at least alert you during Friday notes, as an example, if the change order is less than that threshold amount. What is the threshold amount, Joe? 50,000?
50,000.
Right. If the change order is less than 50,000, I would at least alert you in Friday notes, this is what's happening, and then you would see at the next meeting a formal change order for you to approve and adopt.
I
That's
thought we
not what
lowered it to
happened.
25, no?
I don't think we didn't change the policy to it.
We didn't?
But
Okay.
we said we would let you, we alert you of any, I think Joe's gonna get to, some of it is, there's also a timing. There could be, especially with summer work, we may need to alert you before a board meeting. You're doing some work and there's 4 months in between, and they need to fix something or do something. We want you to know ahead of time. We did that one time this year already. This is what we see. We want you to know so we can move forward. We can't wait 4 or 5 weeks because we need to get it done. But we will let you know of every single change that goes on. There's no problem whatsoever. Joe and
I will tell you
agree.
that I have no evidence whatsoever that any of these changes that were made, spending a $100,000 allowance, were ever pre-approved by you. And I think that that's a mistake. I think that in the future, we should make sure that every change to the contract is approved by you. Either in the Friday notes letting you know, and you could call us up and say, wait a minute, that's not what we intend. Or if it's more than $50,000, stop the work until such time as you could approve it.
Okay, can I just say something? It's, this presentation is 22 pages, and it's already
So here we go.
9:50.
You ready, Kate? I'm just slipping through all of the others. They're in your presentation. I'll let you read them on your own. These are all changes that were requested by the district and were charged against the allowance. This one is kind of a logical one when you think about it. It was not, the plan did not include taking the old PA system and wiring it into the new public address head-end unit. That could be a mistake on the part of the architect for not including that, but it wasn't included in the contract, and therefore you can expect that if this work was included as part of the contract, instead of $3,029,000, the contract would have been $3,060,000, because they would have included this work. So it's not that you spent more than you should have spent, it's just that you spent it at the end of the project instead of upfront. There are some changes that are reductions in the contract amount, because apparently at some point, there was a decision made to not install certain devices in science classrooms. I don't know what those devices were, but the contractor gave a credit to the district for not having to install those devices. The material was only $293, but the labor to install those devices, whatever they may be, was $3,000.
So there's no paper trail of even things that we're not doing? We just get a credit and say, okay, great, we have a credit? No one even knows what it's for?
The credit was determined, that was offered by the contractor and the construction manager, and the architect vetted that credit based on the work that the contractor presented to them.
So you're saying you don't know it tonight, or you don't know it because there's no paper trail on what was not performed?
I don't know it tonight. If I was in a construction meeting where this was discussed, I might have more information for you.
No, but is it in your office somewhere in a file?
Oh, no,
What
it's
we
not.
didn't do? Yeah,
No, it's
so
not.
It's
Okay, I know I'm probably not allowed to do this.
But that never stopped me before. Sal, you look like you want to say something. Am I putting you on the spot? Do you have experience with this? I'm just curious.
Yeah, I've done schools, I've done about 100 libraries in the state ed across
State ed.
New York State.
Could you go to a mic?
SED, yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I know my wife is wondering where I am right now, but
Sorry. I feel bad. This is a long night.
yeah, 7:30. I'm an architect. I'm happy to be on the committee and be a resource. And we were just talking that the change order process, there's a lot of paperwork. You're looking at a little snippet here. I doubt anything was done improperly. I don't know why you paid $18,000 for the the bathroom, is that what the question was?
It was a square foot.
Oh, per square foot. You probably shouldn't have done that project, you shouldn't have done a small project like that, it's really expensive to do public works. But hopefully I can help with the committee, kind of guide some of these projects with you to make sure that the right projects are done and it's money spent well. But we were just talking about change orders and it shouldn't be that complicated or mysterious, really. Every job has change orders. Getting a credit is really unusual. I don't see them very often. And allowance is already in the project usually. Usually we put an allowance aside so that there's not like a $20,000 allowance that for extra smoke detectors or something. And then you just end up putting them in because the fire marshal may come in and say, well, we need a dozen of them. But there's a logic behind it. I don't know if you're still working with John Griller or not.
We have a new architect.
Okay. Good luck to him, and happy to work with them. I don't know who they are.
Mark Design.
Mark Design, Michael Mark from Mark Design Systems.
Okay.
Can I speak on procurement?
Well, I get that up to you guys.
Yeah, I know. It has to do with the change orders. So I work for the municipality and my specialty is procurements. I'm actually going to a seminar tomorrow and the next day on procurements. And I'm meeting with the New York State Controller's Office with regards to procurements. So when you bid something out, the whole entire thing of bidding is transparency. So you can't put out a bid and then do a change order. The town likes to do change orders and they can't do it if it goes above a certain threshold because certain thresholds need to be publicly bid. So and that's where you have improprieties because they're like, oh, we're just gonna put a change order. And that's where somebody like with the town, they'll bring in Article 78 saying, hey, I didn't get to publicly bid on that because you're not putting it out to the public and you awarded the contract to somebody else. And there's a lot of thresholds on what these amounts are, and I don't know what kind of, if this was just a project-based or is a requirement contract, but once you go out to bid and you award a contract, you can't do any negotiation. Once you have the negotiation, that means you're specializing this awardee and you're giving them special treatment. And then with regards to the addendums in these contracts, these addendums is for all these contractors that are putting out these bids to ask questions and to answer. And everybody has to acknowledge that they are reading all these questions and all these answers. Then now you're gonna couple this is public works project. So public works projects are even more scrutinized. And there's a lot of guidelines with public works. So and you have to connect it with the contract of what they're allowed to bill and what they're not allowed to bill. Because yes, there are certain allowances, but you have to reference it back to the contract in order to make sure that these change orders are correct. And there should be POs issued on every single line item. So it is a very intertwined and very complicated procedure.
So what they're doing, I think to avoid the rebid is they're just working within the allowance and eating up these
It
allowances.
shouldn't be. There needs to be checks and balances, and that's where you have wasteful money.
Like this
Is
project,
everybody on the project, is everybody making sure how many hours are being checked in? Or do you have like,
Yeah, there was Kim, a construction manager on this project, who did exactly that. Counted the hours that people were working. Kim's point is very well taken, that sometimes people do a project, they get it approved by the state education department, and then they attempt to add to the scope of the project by saying, okay, we were going to do windows, but guess what? Now we're going to do doors as well. Can we write a change order so that you can do doors? And if those doors cost more than $35,000, general municipal law requires that they be bid. Not if it's an additional window, because that was within the scope of the original project. But to expand the scope requires you to go out to bid if it's more than $35,000. That's a general.
these are all smaller though, what
Yeah,
you're
they're all
showing, so
very
they
small.
fall under that. And they went through $100,000 in change orders. And, you know, these little bites are adding up.
Yep. They did, absolutely. There was one change order, to Kim's point, there was one change order that was required when PSEG told us that the switchgear that we had was not the switchgear, the panel that we had needed to be split into two panels because they were afraid there was going to be an overload in one of the panels. That was a change in the regulations that caused us to spend an additional $15,000, $20,000, whatever it was. It's in one of these slides.
I have perhaps a suggestion, since this committee, which thank you all for being on this committee, and I'm also a member of this committee, will meet separately. Do you think, since there's not the availability of as much back and forth with the committee, that it would make sense to carry on this conversation to be had at a committee meeting?
Sure.
So that we could have more productive back and forth rather than keeping guests here for a slide presentation?
Absolutely.
And keeping board members in what seems like we've been discussing the granular nature of these change orders in very detailed measure for a number of board meetings, so perhaps it's met better at a committee.
It's your pleasure as a board. We just wanted to give you all of the information that you
Good.
needed.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
I'm a little worried I don't understand the change process, and I'm not on the capital committee. I'm not looking to keep people, but I don't think that's going to work for me if I don't get to hear what the, but
How does
we
that-
could do it at a different meeting.
Well-
I'm not saying extend this, but
No, well, I
think this
think
came
what
out because-
Alex is trying to say is this back and forth isn't typically, we
Oh,
don't
yeah, yeah.
typically permit it with
You
our
could come
community
to the
members.
committee meeting and observe
I was just gonna
as a
suggest
non-committee
that.
member. Can he or can he not as a
You
board
know,
member?
you can attend, but you can't
Do we-
speak, because
Right.
then you have a quorum.
Right.
So I believe you can attend and you can listen if it's
Yeah.
informative. But I would agree with Alex for a more thorough back and forth. I mean, it would make more sense. This way they don't have to hold their
We could also
questions
visit Joe in
to
his
the end.
office and have him explain it to you.
But if any board members have any other questions on Joe's presentation, I think that's totally fair to, let him answer it. If you have a couple more questions before he moves on. Do you have?
I'm listening. I'm trying to learn.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know what my questions are yet.
So I don't know how to explain it in more detail. I think more detail would probably get me even more confused. But the basic reasons for change orders are either a condition was discovered that was not anticipated, and it was not specified in the contract documents or on the plan documents. And the contractor has to do it for whatever reason, safety, fire safety, convenience, whatever the reason may be. That becomes a change order because it's changing the terms of the contract.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion...
The examples you've given, I understand. I think I probably have a bigger picture question that won't be answered tonight, and hopefully this committee will help get us
Gotcha.
better situated, but I think,
Like, the bigger question is, why are there change orders
well,
in the first place?
no, how much of it is less than great planning by the architect, or less than great collaboration between the architect and the contract manager, where maybe the contracting manager could spot issues. So I'm curious, longer term, where those things were not happening maybe in the past, and we could do a better job. So, and maybe the answer is they were happening, and we can't do a better job, and these are just the way they are.
I can tell you that I have not yet been in a district doing a capital project where there were not change orders.
There's no perfect.
Even when you do work on your house, right? Like you do a big renovation in your house, usually there's a change order, right? I mean,
A little easier.
One that,
I mean, you just approve it, you don't have to go, right, but there
One that-
should be a change order.
One that was listed here and I mentioned last week was the piece of fiber. I have to say that was an overlook by the architect. We were building 5 or 6 rooms that are going to be classrooms that need to be connected to our network, and he didn't have a fiber running back to our NOC. So I saw, like, it had to be done. So there was a change order for 32, I forget what it was. So that was something on our end, like, we requested, but in my vision, that was missed by the architect.
So I don't know where we
You
came
didn't
out.
pay for it anyway, you didn't pay for it until then.
Right, we paid for it after, right?
Yeah, I think that's an
It
important
was-
point that Sal is making. If it was missed by the architect and was not in the contract, in a perfect world, that dollar amount that we're spending on that change order would have been in the contract amount if the contract had been written correctly. So, $30,000 for the fiber? Okay, instead of $3,029,000, if that fiber was in the contract would have been for $3,059,000.
Well, we don't know that because we don't have a breakdown of how much profit is in the original bid, and so,
Well, we do know though what the specifications were, and we do know
No, I
what the
agree.
plans were, and that fiber was in neither.
yeah, understood.
I do remember when we did do that project, we spoke to one of our cablers, and it was it was 3,000 and change, not 30,000. So much better, and he said that's within reason, it wasn't astronomical.
Yeah, there's kind of 3 buckets. It falls in client-directed changes, architect missed it, and then the third bucket is
Discovered conditions.
discovered, right, thank you, it's getting a little late. So the thing is, the architect firms we just met with, all universally, and correct me if I'm wrong, said it's rare an allowance is taken because it only gets taken usually in the event of a surprise. Client directed's not a surprise, so that's going to be that. And then the other example, so the 3 client directed, what was the architectural error. So I want to understand how much of the percent was architectural error in poor planning, because when they come to the board to vote on the project amount, we're approving that amount. The allowance is our money. We expect that to come back only in the event of a surprise, or if we change something.
I'm pretty sure that no architect is going to come to you and say, my bad, you're going to need to spend more money because I made a mistake. Some may.
I'm not even saying that, I just want to know how many times that happened, and how many times, this, because the architects we met with, they said it's a very low, it's really a surprise when money is taken in the form of an allowance. And if we're going and making these client-directed change orders, who's doing it? You mentioned former people, right? And then is there oversight in that process? Do we have the proper controls as a board
So
going forward?
let me say again, Mark. If I was your business official, you would have known about those changes, even though they were charged against the allowance, before the end of the project. You would have known as they happened. That's the way I operate. It's your money, it's not my money to spend.
And we agreed to do that. These changes are 4 and 5 years ago for this contract. We're in complete agreement to say, here are the changes proposed and why. Done.
And then if you have concerns, we would have the architect come to the meeting and explain why it's necessary.
And we've been seeing that in the last few months, haven't we?
Yes.
Yes.
So I'll show you the last one on this presentation. This last one is, if you remember, we had the marine lab. We needed to do electrical work in the marine lab. We had a walkthrough with Anthony Clements, looked at the plans as well himself. These were not part of the plans. The contractor estimated the cost at $15,000. He proposed the cost to be $15,000. And because that exhausted the allowance completely, there was one additional amount added to the contract in the amount of 5,000 and something. Here's the construction manager's summary of the change orders and the change orders according to the contractor, which line up exactly except for that last change order, which this report was written before then. And last, I wanted to show you what a certificate for payment looks like. This is a form that's prepared by the American Institute of Architects. It is a way that the architect and the construction manager can review a payment request. I wanted to point out one thing to you on this page. In the middle of the left-hand side, there's a line called retainage. Retainage, in every contract, we are allowed to retain 5% of the money that the contractor has earned, so that, God forbid, there's something we discover after we've paid the contractor, we still hold 5% of his money, so we can get him to come back and fix it. Right? That's retainage. Here's the schedule of all of the various parts of the project that Rowie agreed to do. The schedule of values, it's called. And every time he requests a payment, he tells us how much of the work he's completed in each of those lines. We hold back 5%, and then we pay him the balance. And that's my change order presentation.
Thank you.
Can you back up to the first page on that last one, the next one?
They didn't break out overhead and profit as part of their
No.
schedule value?
No. No, they normally don't. Which is
And that's why we
which is
are
Mark's point. And
having
Bill-
trouble controlling it, because we want to see that, and we understand prevailing wage, we understand people's capitalistic need to make a profit, but it's hard to say when there's a $3 million project.
It's all contractual, it should be, I believe
Yeah,
this is a
should be right
contract,
in there.
it should be right in there.
Yeah.
And if it's not, depends on the state,
Then it's
to
us.
follow
Yeah.
or.
And there should be no negotiations after the bid award, it should all be in there.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think if I could, I don't remember where this may have been discussed and agreed to already, but can we also do like a look at a re-review of our construction management firm? I'm not saying we would change, but we did this with the architect, and I thought it was helpful. But I think it's good to keep this process fresh, where we interview again and make sure we have the right people.
Yes, you just, at your reorg meeting, you did renew the
Thank
agreement
you.
with Park East, but
But we have a schedule, I believe, where we are supposed to RFP basically everyone every few years, and I don't
think
know
it's a
that it had been
5-year.
done. I don't know that it had been done, so that could be a spring for them, I would think, or winter even, just to see where we are with that. Yeah, this came up a lot, is whether or not just we were even on our contractual side, if we were doing our due diligence with what we were presenting to people. So maybe that's a conversation to have at the committee.
You guys have a
level. And the
procurement
same
manual?
with the bid process. I've
For
never.
your RFP and stuff like that, you guys should have procurement manual. That lists
So let's do this at a committee where we can talk, because we're not really,
Okay,
we
yes.
can't really go back and forth, because while it works in this capacity, it doesn't work in all capacities, and then we're.
Right, that's right. All right,
Is the
so,
construction manager an RFP process, or it's just?
yes, any professional service, architectural, CM, lawyers, doctors, are all procured through an RFP, not a bid. And so, and Kim knows this because many of the public works projects that are done are through a bid, because you can specify exactly what you want to have done. The asphalt should be 5/8 of an inch thick. It should go from curb to curb, et cetera, et cetera. That you can bid. An RFP is used when there are other factors that you have to think about.
okay. Well, because of the late hour, we do have another presentation, which is an important one. It's the budget presentation. So I was going to bring it to you guys, what you thought we should do. We could do a brief overview of it, which may not be giving it enough attention, or perhaps, thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Or perhaps it would be better that we have, Joe says we have some interviews coming up, we'll be meeting again in a couple of weeks. Perhaps it's best to move that out a couple of weeks. I'm looking at the budget calendar. We wouldn't want to wait till February, which is the next time we're meeting to discuss this. We want to start the conversations earlier, but perhaps it would be better. Do you guys want to wait for a couple of weeks and do it then?
Yeah.
Instead of rushing it?
Just one thing. If you
Okay,
could.
okay.
Just one thing. which
Just
is
one.
Literally, just one thing. Give us guidance as to what you would think would be acceptable in 26, 27.
As far as what?
Tax levy,
We're not doing that
increase.
for now.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, I think-
We're not doing that now.
The one thing I will say is that last year we asked for 0, 1, and 2% just to see that, and we were presented initially with like 1.8, 1.9, 1.98%, and then eventually got the 0, 1, and 2%. So I think whatever people agree with, but that to me seemed like a good way to take a look at our range to help us make a decision. I don't know how people feel about that.
Could it
And
be
also,
above two?
Yes. What, Joe, do you know when I'm sorry, Bill, when do we get our maximum tax? The 2% tax cap can be higher than 2. It doesn't make sense, but.
Because I think we do, like what Alex said, 0, 1, 2, and max.
We don't
So
know
we
max
have-
yet.
Oh, we don't know,
Yeah.
It's usually a little bit higher.
2.12.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we could,
But
So if we
Yes,
have 2,
close.
we can
We're
get.
here close.
I want you to,
The
I'm
other-
gonna give you some food for thought, all right? I guarantee you, if you told me to prepare a budget with a 0% tax levy increase, I could do it like that. No problem whatsoever, not change a single penny about the program you offer to children. And I also guarantee you that I'll be polishing my resume for my next job, because next year, you will not be able to repeat it, because you have drained.
We just want to see it, though. I don't want, I feel like that's not really, it's like,
No, what.
but you're already telling us that we don't want it, and I think we'd like to see what that looks like with a projection.
Okay, so then we will present to you how a 0% budget would look if it was gonna be sustained, which means.
Yeah, that's what we would want to.
And the 1%.
You got it.
Yeah.
And then, so we'll make a list of programs that would need to be cut.
That's fine.
We're gonna do that.
Because we want to see it, we just want to see it. Doesn't mean we're doing it, we just want to see it.
I think
But-
we also want to, one thing, and I'm happy to do the work on this, because I know maybe you don't want to, but I just need help trying to understand where we stand in all of our funds reserves versus other districts. So what % of our reserves do we have compared to our $81 million budget versus what does Jericho have, what does Locust Valley have, et cetera?
Right. Our current fund balance is about $24 million compared to an $82 million budget. Of that $24 million, most of it is in the capital reserve, which can only be used for capital projects. 4% is in
Jeff
the
is the-
unassigned fund balance, which can be used in emergency, you can increase the appropriation. And the rest of it is in reserves like the TRS reserve, the Edelor reserve. And in my presentation, when we get to it.
We'll get some of these answers, right? Yeah. in
I
a
just
couple
think if
weeks.
we're not looking at 0, then when people say, how come you have $24 million in reserves and you're increasing my taxes, we don't have an answer for them. If you show us 0, we have an
Right.
answer.
And then when they say, why didn't you do this % or this %, we can say, well, these are the things we were gonna have to cut. You know, so it's good to see the worst case scenario.
You got it.
All right.
You got it. And I'm
All right.
sure that your new business official will be happy to do that.
Okay. All right, so moving on to other matters. I guess first, I think we should, I'll take a motion to approve the budget calendar. Could I have a first? Kate, a second? Mark, any questions? I was just going to add that, we probably will add another
There may be more.
meeting
That's minimal.
to that. So probably, and one certainly before February. Okay, so any other questions, comments?
I have a question. So we had, 2 years ago, we had put together like a list of sort of pie in the sky wishes and other wishes that board members had for what could be put in to the budget, and I believe that was done in like December or January. I just don't know what the lead time would need to be on something like that. I think if we wait from now until February, then we're coming in a little late for those, right? And that's how we got some really big things approved in the budget that
I
year.
think Joe, on your last slide, right, you're asking for that information.
Yeah.
And that's why it's important that, and we add that meeting
Okay.
in the next couple of weeks, but we have other important items to get to, like these interviews that need to be held then too.
Well,
So,
and the same comment, I think, goes for the building leaders and other people who, because I feel like they were afraid to ask last year for things, so.
Yeah, absolutely, and if you have any things, you send them in, we could start pricing them out and looking at them now. There's no reason to wait till later.
Right, and maybe we can spread those presentations out over time, because
Right,
if we look at the calendar, because it's a lot in one night.
Right, we dedicated, I believe it's 3 nights just to budget. In the previous year, they were part of the regular board meeting. They're dedicated just to budget, starting earlier, 6 o'clock, the way we used to do them. So,
I guess the question is it too late if they're doing these presentations with requests in mid to late February, if the principals are coming and saying, it would be so nice to have, new,
College-style cafeteria.
right, and
We
that's,
can move that up.
is that a capital expense?
That's definitely a capital
Not a
expense.
budget. Send the college counselors, I want to send them all to the West Coast this year or something. So can we just make sure that we're giving them enough runway for that too?
I think that, if I remember correctly, I think that Joe has put together in previous years that wish list. So we may need to just start doing that.
right, we will, the principals and directors will not be restricted to what they want to ask for. Now, doing your cafeteria, right, that is a capital project. That's not something you typically do just in the budget. So they will have all their wish lists and everything, and we'll take a look to see. You will see them, and then we'll add, subtract, change, adjust appropriately as a team.
any other questions? Okay. All in favor? Take a motion to approve the RFP for the marine wetland. May I have a first? Kate, a second. Alex, any questions? All in favor? I'm going to take a motion to waive the first read of, or the second read of policy 6710 and policy 8334 as a slate. Could I have a first? Bill, a second. Kate, any questions? All in favor? We have an audience to visitors, but no one left in the audience. And one more discussion section. Anyone have anything, items for discussion? All right, and before we go, I want to thank Dylan, who hung in here at 10:23 with all of us. Pretty great job. All right, so then I'm going to take a motion for an adjournment. May I have first? Alex, a second. Lisa, all in favor? All right, we're done.
Like you